Good evening. For those of you who have joined us after closed session, welcome to this regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. I'm Laura Simon, Board President, and I would like to introduce my fellow trustees, Sean Mora, Jean Marie Wolf, Jeannie Kerr, and Lisa Pelosi, and our Student Board Representative, Andy Martinez. I would also like to introduce our district staff. Superintendent, Dr. Jody McClay, Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official, Dr. Kay Vang, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board, Ms. Erica Madrigal, Executive Assistant to the Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Melissa Hansen, and from Napa TV, Mr. James Raymond. In addition, staff members are joining us in the audience. St. Helena High School Principal, Mr. Ben Cinto, RLS Middle School Principal, Mr. Andrew Ryan, St. Helena Elementary School Principal, Mrs. Kathy O'Connor, and St. Helena Primary School Principal, Mrs. Rebecca Rocha. We're delighted that you are viewing in person on television channel 27 or on our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.sthelenaunified.org. In connection with items 4A and 4B, the board received information and provided staff with direction. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to move on to 6A, public comments. Before starting your comment, you may provide your name and address. Please do not provide your name if you wish to remain anonymous or if you do not want your information included in the meeting minutes. There's a 3-minute limit on public comment. This public forum is not structured as a question and answer session, but is offered as an opportunity to share your thoughts with the board. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on items not on the meeting agenda? Okay. No? Okay. We're going to move on to presentations. 7A, presentation by the student representative of the board, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. Okay, so here for the high school, leadership is planning multiple events and retaining programs for the second semester. Leadership is hoping to bring back a program called Team Connect, aka Fleur Family. And Team Connect, our leaders are students who serve as positive role models for the freshmen in class, and they can be kind of like big sister, big brother kind of thing. And people who sign up there are leaders who share the lessons they have learned in school and life to show others how to succeed. And then leadership's hoping to bring back some more climate during lunch and break and do activities like hacky sack, spike ball, beanbag toss, and just play music in the quad for a better school culture and climate. And then for the RLS, the Great Kindness Challenge is through January 26th to January 30th. And on Tuesday, January 6th, the RLS values were reviewed and the kindness challenge was introduced, and the focus word is empathy and advisory. And that was brought up during advisory, and all students received their kindness challenge card at the end of 4th period to complete as many acts of kindness as they can do in 1 week. And then 8th grade took a field trip to State Capitol and Sacramento IMAX Theater, where students will learn about the branches of government and California history. The elementary school, on the day before winter break, the elementary school came together in a community to celebrate the season. Students and staff spent time together in the auditorium, celebrating the holiday through music. And then there was also a Shop with a Cop program. 3 students were carefully selected to participate in a Shop with a Cop program, coordinated with Miss Officer Marcella. This was a meaningful experience, strengthened positive relationships between students and local law enforcement, creating lasting memories. And then as for the 5th graders, 5th grade students participated in cookie decorating here at the high school with Chef Gibbons. And they traveled to the high school, decorated a whole bunch of cookies, and just promoted creativity and collaboration. And for the primary school, bringing in the One School, One Book program. Each student receives a copy to read at home as a family, as well as at school. And then at school, students celebrate and explore the novel with their classmates. And then they are introducing after-school classes, including art, theater, Zumba, and music. And they are being taught during the second semester by teachers Ms. Calperez, Ms. Coyle, Ms. McCornack, and Mr. Biner. Thank you. Any comments, questions?
We always appreciate your reports. Thank you so
course.
much. Sounds like there was a lot of exciting things going on in December and to look forward to. I'll be on the Sacramento field trip with the 8th graders, so I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm going to learn a lot. Okay. We're going to move on to 7B, St. Helena Unified School District property taxes. Dr. Vang.
Thank you, President Simon. Over the past few years, St. Helena Unified has seen a slowdown in our property tax revenue growth. Today, I've invited Assessor Recorder, County Clerk John Tudor, and from Napa County Office of Education, Superintendent Josh Schultz, and Associate Superintendent Kelly Busey to share some information regarding property taxes, how it works, including AB8 factor and assessment rules. So without further ado, I will have the three of them come up to the podium and present. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vang, members of the board. It's a pleasure to see all of you. I've been working with an all-female board of supervisors. It's nice to see an all-female school board. It's about time. I wanted to just give you a little background. I've just started my 40th year as Napa County Assessor and my 48th year with the county. And I like to bring to each of the entities for whom we have raised taxes to talk to you a little about the process. So I want to start out by saying my job as county assessor is not to raise money. My job is to be fair and to provide the correct assessment. I don't care if the assessment's high or low, as long as it's correct and fair. And so, as you know, during the Great Recession, we reduced 12,000 properties, some as much almost as 50%, because they'd bought at the height of the bubble, and then the bubble collapsed and the value of their house went down. They've pretty much recovered, but it took almost 12 years for that recovery to take place. We're not in that situation right now, but as you've all heard, the wine and hospitality industry are having some challenges. You might want to have a presentation on that. I might suggest to Superintendent McClay that might be something to have the Napa Valley vintners and perhaps the grape growers come and talk to you a little bit about that, because that does affect the assessed value of the property, especially in the St. Helena Unified School District, which is one of the premier wine growing areas in the world, and therefore any impact on the wine industry has an impact on you. Dr. Vang, did you have my numbers up in a display? The first one's fine. I'm going to have a little trouble reading it from here. So what the line you're interested in is the St. Helena Unified School District assessed value, and that assessed value is, you're ranked second on the list because you're the second highest assessed value. Of course, Napa Valley Unified School District covers a much greater territory and has a higher assessed value. Yours is the second highest assessed value, substantially lower than theirs. The total assessed value of Napa County is $59 billion, which is the fourth highest assessed value per capita in the state of California. All four of those counties are in the Bay Area, by the way, led by Marin, then San Mateo, San Francisco, and us. We were third highest, but San Francisco got ahead of us this year. So we do have a very healthy assessed value because Napa County and its elected and appointed leaders for the past 60 years, with the passage of the Ag Preserve in 1968, have done an incredible job of managing the growth and keeping the attractive natural environment of this community. And that leads to a scarcity of both housing and land for development, since most of the land is dedicated to agricultural open space. So that scarcity raises prices. And we're still not as expensive as Contra Costa and San Francisco, but we are in the North Bay, of course, the leading county in terms of assessed value of both homes and vineyard lands, commercial and industrial. So that's the healthy tax base we have. The question is, how fast does it grow? And in the Great Recession in 2010, only 9 counties out of the 58 counties actually saw a growth in their total assessed value. The other 49 counties had a decrease. Napa County only had a $15 million increase, $15 million on a $30 billion roll, so we just barely scratched out an increase, but we did keep it going. So we haven't had a decrease in value since 1978 after Prop 13 passed, and that was only a very slight decrease. But the key for you as the governing board of this district, and for Ms. Vang and for the superintendent, is to be very careful how you expect assessed value to become in the future. The Board of Supervisors and the county executive officer ask me each year to give them a projection out 5 years as to what I expect the growth to be. And in the 40 years, I've never given a projection that was higher than what we came in at. Conservatism, fiscal conservatism is a bonus when you're trying to budget for important things like educating children and paying your teachers, et cetera. So I've always recommended a very conservative increase. And in the years of the recession, that increase was 0. And we just barely beat it that one year with a 0.05% increase. So when I talked to Dr. Vang and the members of your staff and with Mr. Schultz, Superintendent Schultz, I want to bring that message to you that you need to be very conservative. 1 year, I used to come and speak to this board every year. That's sort of tapered off over the years. I guess people are used to me by now after 40 years. But 1 year, the St. Helena School District did not follow what I thought was not that I set your budget by any means, but they projected a little more than I did, and they were wrong. And they actually had to have some budget adjustments during the year because of that. So Dr. Vang and I had a great discussion about that, and that's primarily why I'm here today, not to warn you that things are terrible and they're going to get worse or anything like that, but to urge you to be very conservative in your budgeting as you go into the 26-27 year and the years after that. We don't know 2 things. As you know, the major word in the economy today is uncertainty and instability. And we haven't seen that yet. The stock market's still fine. Wages and wage growth and employment have not taken a big hit. But nobody's quite sure what's going to happen over the next few years. So that's one. The second is our local issue, which is the wine industry and the hospitality industry. Most of our assessed value is residential. There are a lot more houses than there are vineyards. So about 70% of our roll is residential, and that's not going to change much. Of course, in the recession, it changed a huge amount. But there's usually a pretty steady growth and appreciation in property prices, especially residential properties. So vineyards and winery are an important part of our assessment role, but they're not anywhere near even 20%, because by the time you add in industry and other commercial not related to the wine industry, they're in the 15% range. So this impact is going to have an impact And it trickles even into the residential. If people aren't coming to work in the wine industry, they're not buying houses or they're not renting apartments, and rentals could take a hit. We did reduce a number of apartment complexes, the large ones in Napa, during the Great Recession because rents were dropping. People were having trouble making their rent and being able to continue to look for and accept housing. So that isn't happening now. I'm certainly not painting a dismal picture, but I'm painting a very cautious picture. I think you as the board members and your incredible staff just need to look to the future in a very cautious way. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Dutier. Go back.
Well, one more thing I should
Yeah.
add. I tell this story every time. I told it to Dr. Vang. I probably should tell it to you. So there is school revenue, and then there's assessed value. Here's what happens in my view as the assessed value person. I know nothing about school revenue. So my vision is that Tracy Schulze, who is the auditor controller of Napa County, and Josh Schultz put on tall, pointy hats and have a big cauldron, and they throw in eye of newt and toe of frog and assessed value and stir it around, and out comes school revenue. So that's why Josh is here.
Thank you.
Well, it's not quite as magical as that, but I am going to try to explain how it translates into revenue to the school district. I have a bunch of slides, but I'm really going to go through them quite quickly. I'm just going to make a few key points about how the mechanics of this work so that it actually translates into the property tax revenue you receive. Are you? Oh, yeah, right, okay. Mr. Tudor mentioned Tracy Schultze, the auditor controller. A lot of the material I'm going to cover is really about the work that her office does. We do have a role in supporting and certifying that data when it comes in and in actually mechanically getting the revenue to you, and Kelly's going to talk a little bit about that. But the pieces I'm going to cover really is about the work that the auditor controller's office does after Mr. Tudor's office has set the assessment roles. Very briefly, these are kind of the key things I'm going to cover. You already heard about the assessment role. You know, essentially, right, the way property tax revenue works is the assessment roll sets the values, and then they bill 1% of that assessed value as the property tax bills that businesses and homeowners receive. The AB8 factors that I'll get into a little bit is how you actually determine what share of that 1% you as a school district actually get, because of course there are other taxing entities in your territory, cities, sewer districts, et cetera, that get a share of that. And then Kelly's going to talk a little bit about how it's actually distributed in the timelines. So the next 3 slides, I'm not going to go into in any real detail. They are from a presentation that some of you I know saw when we had a countywide board meeting about 2 years ago, where we got into the topic of property taxes. It wasn't focused just on your district. So this is material that Tracy Schultze's shop and Bob Minahan, the elected county treasurer, put together along with Mr. Tudor a couple years ago. I'm just really putting it there as reference. The thing I'm going to focus on, again, is this concept of the AB8 factors and how they actually determine what share of the property taxes that are actually paid go to the district. These factors were set in the wake of Prop 13. So when Prop 13 changed our property tax system in the state of California and reduced property taxes fairly significantly, the AB8 was the key implementing bill that determined how we're going to distribute property taxes going forward. So most of these factors that I'm going to talk about, which are the percentages of the property taxes in your territory that you actually receive, are historical factors that were set in stone way back then in the late 1970s, and they only changed on very limited purposes, like when there's territory transfers or for changes, relative changes in assessed value, and I'll talk about that. But they're relatively fixed based upon that history. Okay. So this is just another look at the assessed value in your district. So the number on the left, secured, should match up with the spreadsheet that Mr. Tudor showed earlier. And then it also shows the unsecured taxes, which are things like business equipment and boats and airplanes, so not fixed real estate. So that's the total assessed value, right? And if you look at that 1% of that total assessed value, ballpark, we're talking, what, $128 million in your territory. Now, obviously, the district doesn't receive $128 million, and again, that's because you have to share it with a bunch of other entities. And I'll just point out that there's a link at the bottom of each of these slides that shows you exactly where you could pull the same data from the county's website. So all of this is public information that's available to anyone to take a look at. And each of these documents that I'm going to show in the next couple of slides are available there. And you can see the historical information as well if you're interested. So AB8 factors, again, set historically, are the percentages that you get, and it's actually broken up not just by your entire territory, but by each what we call tax rate area. So even within the district's territory, there are different overlapping jurisdictions. So for example, part of the district overlaps with the city of St. Helena, but much of the district doesn't. So for each different area where there is a unique combination of jurisdictions, that's a separate tax rate area because the taxes are divvied up by each area that has its own unique geographic combination of entities. So some areas are in the sewer district and some aren't, for instance, right? So your code, which you can't find without getting to another document, is that it's 45800. So this slide and the next slide show some of these individual tax rate areas and show the percentage of the taxes that are collected in that area that are attributable to you. So for instance, in most of these, you're going to see it's around 30%, right? You're looking at 0.3 something. So of the total assessed value in that area, the 1% that is levied on that, about 30% is attributable to you. But as I'm going to explain a little later, that's not actually how it's distributed, but it's how the countywide AB8 factor is established. And then that countywide factor is how, when money comes in, you actually get dollars coming into your coffers. These two tax rate areas are the two that are overlapping with the city of St. Helena. And then these ones that you can't see at all, but again, if you look at the slide deck later on, you'll see, circled which one is actually you. But you'll see there's a different combination of entities in some of them, right? Because the different government entities have a share of the property taxes in that area. 4,900 on all these slides, and you can see it a little better on this one. That's the County Office of Education, so we're countywide, so we're a part of pretty much every tax rate area. The 1,000s is the actual county. I think the city is that 15,300 one, if I'm remembering correctly. So you can kind of see the relative percentages that these different entities get. So what happens is the Auditor Controller's Office gets the assessment roll and they look at it by each of these tax rate areas and they determine, okay, overall, the assessed value is $12 billion. Based upon each of these tax rate areas, that means that combined out of that territory, we anticipate St. Helena from that 1% is going to get 40-something million dollars. They do that for each governmental entity in each tax rate area throughout the county. So they come up with a number based upon the assessment roll and these historical AB8 factors for each entity. And then based upon that number, they say, okay, your AB8 percentage of total countywide taxes is X. And that is shown right here on this sheet, okay, which they roll up all those individual tax rate areas to calculate one combined AB8 factor for you for that year for the entire county. So the number for St. Helena is right around 7.5% of the total countywide property taxes. And again, it's circled there for your district. That number is how actual property taxes collected are distributed. So once the assessment roll is set and they've done their AB8 factor calculations and they've rolled it up to these countywide factors, every dollar of property taxes collected countywide, you're going to get 7.4 whatever percentage of it for that fiscal year. Okay? And of course, the actual collections tend to match up fairly well with the assessment roll estimated collections, but there can be things that can change that, including disputes over the property value, which could mean that they're not going to collect the full amount. In some cases, natural disasters or other things that delay bills, et cetera. Kelly's going to talk about delinquent taxes, where actually usually you generally do get those. She'll talk about that mechanism. But that's the way the money actually comes in. One of the things that means is once the factor's set, individual changes within your area for that year don't actually just affect you, they affect everybody. And the same as a change in American Canyon that results in more or less property tax collected for that year will affect you as well, because once the factor's set, you're getting a share of countywide property taxes, not just your territory, but it's set upon what happened to assess values in your territory and those calculations at the tax rate area level. Am I going backwards here? No, okay. So that's the basic concept of how they set how much money you get, and then Kelly's going to talk about how the dollars actually flow.
Thank you. I would like to communicate, well, I'm going to walk you through this timeline, and what I'm really going to try to answer for you are some nuances related to when we have certified and when you can feel that the information is now reliable, because I feel like that is the question that I get the most. At what point in the year do I actually know that this number that has been reported is something that is actionable? So what you see up on the screen is actually a very lengthy timeline. The life cycle of the calculation for property taxes is actually quite long. It starts in the prior fiscal year. So I have up here for the 2025-26 property tax year. It actually started back in January 2025, at what point there was the lien date or the as of date for assessed value for property. It's a moment in time. It's a snapshot. It happens in January. And then this is the data that John Tudor's office is working with and takes us forward to July, where that assessment roll is then sent from John Tudor's office over to the county auditor's office, where they will then produce the AB8 factors that come out in September. It's probably at that time that you could probably do some early estimates on your property tax for St. Helena Unified School District. But I would say that if you just waited a few weeks, you would end up hitting the P1 property tax estimates. That is probably the most reliable moment, and I know that that says it's October, right? So that's the rub here, is that you are now several months into a school district year. You've already made some really big decisions about potential building. Staffing has already, you're locked in at that point, right? Mm-hmm. So it is difficult, but I want to say that it is not probably until the P1 certification that comes out of the county auditor's office that you can feel like you have actionable data. That data is certified by communication that happens between both the county auditor controller's office and our office. We do a deep dive into property changes, role changes that have occurred to make sure that you feel comfortable with the information that's being received, that we feel like it's been validated, and then that information is then certified to the state. So what I'm going to say about this timeline that you have up here, you'll notice there's a P1, a P2 estimate, and a P annual. Those are the certifications that come from the county auditor controller's office over to us. We're the ones that receive that information. We disseminate it out to the districts, and the information then becomes certified at the state level for viewability at a public level at the items that you see that are at the top of this timeline. So the P1 property taxes become certified by the state and are available in the first principal apportionment. So you're going to see like when your public can see what your property taxes are versus when you get to see where your property taxes are. The difference between a P1 and a P2 or a P annual, the only changes that are really going to impact an excess tax district, such as yourselves, are roll corrections. You don't receive any of our supplemental taxes here in Napa County. You are receiving only roll corrections, and that is why we see some change, but not significant change for St. Helena Unified School District. The role changes or corrections, you heard that could be disputes. So these, we're talking about small items. We're talking about 0.1% to maybe 0.5% of your total taxes change between P1 and P annual. We often see actually an increase between P1 and P2, and then a slight decrease back down in P annual. There are not significant, in my mind, significant changes that are happening for your district, so that's why I'm saying P1 is your actionable number. I highlighted a section in light blue where you can see that in terms of cash that is coming to your district, you are receiving 90% of that between December and April. That aligns to when all of you are paying your property taxes, right? So we see a quick turnaround from the county auditor's office in terms of pushing that cash out. There's an understanding that there's a cash flow issue for any of our property tax excess tax districts, so there is very little time that occurs between the actual receipts of those taxes from taxpayers and then turning it around because the AB8 factors have already been set. They already know how to distribute. That cash goes right out the door. Okay, so that's it on that one. Let's see. I did want to talk about the nuance of supplemental property tax. This is, now I'll point out again, you don't actually end up receiving any of our supplemental property taxes, but the reason to talk about this is because I often get the question about, I see construction happening down the street. When will that now impact me? So understanding supplemental property taxes is important. And this is in difference to the roll corrections. A roll correction is the dispute or the correction of an assessed amount. A supplemental property tax occurs when there is an actual event. An event is going to be the sale of a home or the completion of new construction. New construction doesn't have to mean that it is just a new home or residence or business. It could mean the addition of a garage that now is being assessed at its own value. The whole house doesn't change, right? Just the garage. That goes into supplemental property taxes. And as an excess tax district, you don't receive it. Those that do in Napa County is going to include our LCFF districts, so that's MVUSD. NCUE happens to be a pseudo excess tax, so we do actually end up receiving some of the supplemental property taxes. So we really only have 2 of our LEAs that are receiving supplementals. It's a $5 million bucket, so it is something to be aware of. It's large, and those funds will end up going back into the full roll in the following year. But in terms of understanding, let's see, I'm going to read to you that third bullet point. I'm going to do it from where I can actually read. A reassessment shows up on the regular secured roll starting with the fiscal year that begins July 1 after the first January 1 lien date that follows the assessment event. Okay, so that's confusing, but I want you to be able to go back to it. And then I'll explain it through one of the examples. So if an event occurs on October 15th, so you see that construction that's down the street and it's happening and it seems to be done and it's October, it will actually fall into the January 1 snapshot and therefore get applied to the following fiscal year. Because remember, January 1, and then once we hit July, it's going to fall into that year. Now, if that same construction, you're driving down the street and you see the work being done and it doesn't get completed and finalized over in John Tuner's office until February 10th, that means that it has missed the January 1 timeline and it will not apply until it won't get captured until the following year's lien date or as of date or snapshot, and won't fall into your roll until that fiscal year, the following fiscal year. So you could be waiting quite a while to actually see the impact in your roll of the higher assessed value on that property. Okay. So the only other thing that I really wanted to capture for you was a quick discussion about being a teeter county. It's important to understand the benefits of that. This is teeter county, so I'll say that there's quite a few of them in the state of California, but not every county needs to be a teeter county. Teeter is an alternative plan on the allocation of property taxes. So I'll tell you, Sonoma County, your neighbor, is a cash basis county. What that means is that as cash goes out, it is recognized. If a member from the community has not paid their taxes, then it goes delinquent, and when they do finally pay, and it is in the following year, those taxes are recognized in that year and are given to the district in that year. So that is difficult if you are a basic aid excess tax district, only because you are making assumptions throughout the year on what you actually are going to receive or can associate with that year. We are able, because we are a Teeter County and the resolution was passed by the county supervisors, able to recognize a receivable for delinquent taxes. Therefore, it becomes part of our fund balance that we can associate with that year and allow it to fund the expenses of that year. It also allows for there to be, and we wouldn't want to see the fluctuations that happen with large delinquencies in a district that is heavily dependent on property taxes. So it is to your benefit that that was the methodology selected for this county. It does make sense for us considering most of our districts are excess tax. In this scenario, the delinquent taxes are 100% funded by the county. They end up taking out a bond in order to fund that. They receive those delinquencies throughout the following years, and then because they took the risk of funding those, they end up keeping the penalties and the late fees. So there's a give and take in this scenario, and I'd say that it works out in your benefit. Okay, I think that was what I was going to try to accomplish. So we could answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions, trustees?
I don't think so. And I know we're going to have another county presentation as well, because I think that's next month, all county. Are we doing that again?
We are doing it again, but property taxes are not going to be the
Oh,
subject
okay.
of that meeting.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I did have one. I thank you very much, by the way. I'll absorb some of that and probably rewatch this to make sure I caught most of it. But I had a question on the John Tudor section, and it doesn't require you to come up because I think it's an ask, but I think I heard you say that approximately 17% of Napa County is maybe, I'm going to word it wrong probably, I'm going to be shamed, is the 17% of the property tax income is coming from the wine industry? Okay. So I guess what I would, if it's possible to have an ask later, is to know for St. Helena Unified specifically, if we could know what our percentage breakout is in terms of, you're saying be conservative, it would be nice to know our exposure across the different revenue sources.
So that's an excellent question, and Dr. Vang and I talked about that. Your percentage is probably higher, right? Because you have a lot of vineyards, you have a number of wineries in the St. Helena Unified School District. You're not 50%, but you might be 20% instead of 17. And again, that includes not just wineries and vineyards, it includes the hotels, to the extent they're based on the tourism industry that's related to the wine industry. And it also includes the bottling plants and the cork manufacturers and everything related to it. So it's not, so some of that is in American Canyon and in the city of Napa in the industrial parks. So it's not a major part of your role, but it's a slightly higher percentage than the other places. And that's, again, Dr. Vang and I discussed that her conservatism should maybe be a little more conservative than other school districts. Well, Calistoga has some of the same issues, not so much Pope Valley and Howell Mountain. And of course, Napa Valley is so huge that there are at the 17, and again, 17% is a wild guess. It's not held down exactly.
Any other questions? No?
Thank you very much for being here, Bill. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to 7C, Eco-Green Solutions presentation regarding PG&E's on-bill financing program for LED lighting retrofit project. And I'd like to call on Dr. Vang.
Thank you. All right, so today I have Anthony Mitchell, who's the Managing Director of Eco Green Solutions, to share a little bit about this program. It is PG&E's on-bill financing program, and we are interested in partnering with EcoGreen for an LED lighting retrofit project. I've done some research into this. EcoGreen provided several references. I was able to speak with some of the school districts who have actually gone through this process. I spoke with the CBO and a facilities director and got some good references because they've gone through this process. I've also worked closely with our legal to ensure that this truly is a zero-cost project to the district, because as we are all aware, we have other facilities projects that are quite costly, and so for us to take on another cost would be very challenging. As you may or may not know, in the state of California, Assembly Bill 2208 was passed, and since January 1st of 2024, compact fluorescent lamps, CFLs, are no longer, they've been banned, and we actually still have the CFLs in all of our facilities. We, prior to discovering and knowing more about EcoGreen, what they can provide through PG&E, Mike and I, our facilities director, and I actually had a plan to slowly phase it in because it is a costly project. And so we are going to slowly phase it in the sense that when we do have lights that go out, we would replace them with LED because of Assembly Bill 2208, you can't go to the store, you can't go to Home Depot, you can't go anywhere else and purchase, regular fluorescent lights anymore. So we were going to slowly phase it in. So as lights go out, we would replace them with LED lights. And as of today, we've only done one LED classroom at RLS, plus the gym at RLS, the Boys and Girls Club gym, and on third floor of Vintage Hall here, and then at the primary school, all of the exterior lights. So this is a very slow process if we were to continue down this path. And so we recently found out about a program through PG&E because we have MCE as our electric provider, and EcoGreen is also one of the authorized vendors for this program. So I am going to just go ahead and turn this over to Anthony to talk a little bit more about this program. In my research, before I turn it over, I did find out, because I was concerned, one of my biggest concern was, how is this, because it is a loan, how and will this impact the district's A+ credit rating? And I found out that it will not impact our A+ credit rating, which is great news because we want to keep our A+ credit rating. So I did find that out. After Anthony's presentation, if we choose to move forward, there is a process we have to go through in order to participate in this, and that includes having a public hearing and a board resolution, a resolution that the board has to pass at February's board meeting. So with that, I'm going to just go ahead and hand over to Anthony now.
Thank you, Dr. Vang. Hi, members of the board. My name is Anthony Mitchell. I'm the president and managing director of EcoGreen Solutions. We've been in this realm of energy efficiency for the Public Utility Commission since 2007. This was a pilot program that originally was started in San Diego Gas and Electric in 2005. So basically, we've been around since the inception, through the pilots, to the alpha and the beta phase, and basically PG&E picked it up about 2010. And we've been pretty much about 60 to 70% of their entire portfolio since 2010, and our specialty is municipalities, school districts, and government agencies. So yes, to Dr. Vang's point, fluorescent lighting has been a problem. Since January 1st of 2025, we have seen ridiculousness in the marketplace. What used to be a $4 lamp is now a $54 lamp. We just finished Cuesta Community College down in San Luis Obispo County, and they're saying they can't find them for less than $50. So what's happening is supply and demand. You guys are in the middle. Our goal is to basically use funds that you guys are already paying into to basically pay towards upgrading the infrastructure, the lighting, and I believe there's a couple other contents inside, outside for each of your facilities. The funds that we pull into are what they call the public purpose program funds. So you pay it in your house, you pay it at your school, you pay it at your city hall, the county pays into it. It's one of the little fees on like the last page of your utility bill, and it's about 8 to 10% of every bill that you pay. So in essence, we're just basically asking PG&E to give you your share towards the project, and they use the savings to pay for it. So it's, in essence, no fiscal impact, no budget impact. It's, in essence, it's like invisible money because it's not UCC filed. It's strictly held just between you and PG&E, and it's within the energy consumption of your bill, and that's kind of how they're able to structure it for the district. You're able to use this program through California because of all the nuances and just the difficulty of just getting through the minutia of the programs. There's a lot of credentials that we have to have, a lot of history with the program. There's really only about 3 entities that really do this well. We do multiple technologies, and so we have been able to really secure this for the district, and we've got several contracts that I think 1 or 2 that have been released. We still have a couple more that are coming, but between now and pretty much the end of the month and by your next board meeting, all of them should be released for you guys. The goal is to basically have all of the funds that you pay into, basically get access to those dollars. We have to create a report, send that back to the Utility Commission. There's multiple layers of review. There's review on the front end, which is what we've already gone through on most of these. As they bless it, they give you what they call an on-bill financing contract, which uses the energy savings as collateral. So there's no really cash outlay for the district to have to write a check or issue a PO. You don't even get an invoice. You've already filled out the applications. You do have one example of the on-bill financing contract that has already been issued for, I believe, the primary school, the elementary
primary
school.
school, yes.
Right? And so that has already been released. That's about $140-something thousand. And so if you want to pull that up. So first page here, this is just a breakdown of the bill material. So one thing is we definitely want to register this with the DIR. If you don't register with the DIR, they will give you some nasty little letters that say, what'd you do? So it is a $0 contract, though, to the district. And so we are DIR registered. It's something there. We just basically tie all our certified payroll records through the prevailing wage process and the public works contracting process to make sure that all of our ducks in a row are basically boxes are checked. This is basically just the bill material breakdown. There's another attachment, which is the energy audit, which is the energy assessment side. There you go. So this is a few pages of a definitely, it's an eye chart, right? Basically to the left of the big bold line in the middle is the old stuff. To the right is the new stuff. And as we go through each building, if you already had touched that item, we would note a skip as you kind of see right there on the screen. If you go all the way to the bottom of that, there's a summary page. And that basically tells you the devil, oh, there you go. Go up a little bit. Yeah, there you go. So really what you're looking at is on the left-hand side, you're looking at, can you go up one more page? There you go. On the left-hand side, you're looking at about 214,000 watts reduced, which is about 264,000 kilowatt hours. That's really important because right now, electricity is the most expensive it's ever been pretty much in history. They have already passed a bill to increase your electricity rates. Residential, commercial, doesn't matter. 14% between now and the next 12 months. We are in a lot of committees, a lot of conversations. It's not set in stone yet, but they're saying by 2030, double and then some. Maybe as much as 170%. So right now, we know 14% is coming in 12 months or less. So what we try to do is we do the assessment, we use today's rates, realizing your money tomorrow is going to be worth more than today. And so we use today's numbers to basically compel the utility company to give you the money to pay for this work to get done full turnkey. All the bulbs you have mercury in them. Each bulb, if you don't dispose of it correctly, destroys 24,000 gallons of water and 1 light bulb, just because of the mercury content. So recycling is part of that. There is a 12 months labor warranty on everything that we touch, and up to a 10-year material warranty, so the district really should not be touching, paying anything with lighting for a very long time. If something goes out, you take a picture of it, you email us. Our guys will either come out and fix it within a few days, or say it's 3-4 years down the road, take a picture of it. We'll work with the factories to replace it, send you guys the material, and your facilities guys will go up and just replace the light bulb or what have you. Majority of this is fixture replacements. The old fixtures are great. Don't get me wrong, they'll last probably another 40 years, but the guts start to corrode, wires get corroded, heat, what have you, causes the insulation to chip off. So we want to try to get you guys something that's going to last for the next 25, 30 years, so you guys can retire and realize that the district is set. That's pretty much how we approach the marketplace. And we're using the funds that you're already paying into to foot the upfront cost, and then the savings over time is what pays for the project. Okay? If you want to look at the on-bill financing contract, I'll show you how it's structured, and that is the example from PG&E. There you go, on the very bottom. Yeah, that's the quote. No, that's another site. There would be a. I really need my glasses. No, I don't see it there.
I don't think it's on this one.
It's not on this one? Okay. Sorry. Basically, the on-bill financing contract shows that every month you guys are in the positive, okay? They give you, I'm going to say 5 points or less, 5% or less of the savings that's being realized to make sure that you guys are in the black every month so you're not in the red. And really, you guys and gals, the numbers are ultra conservative. So if the lights are on, say, all night long, they only let us use them for about 8 hours. If the lights are on 6 hours, they let us use them for about 4 to 3 hours. So they're really conservative because they want to make sure that there's no budget impact. They're very cognizant of the sensitivity of billing with municipalities. So what they do is when we do our assessment, we have to go through a third-party review to verify everything that we say is correct. Nobody's making anything up. It's like an architect that would stamp a plan. He has to stamp that plan to make sure that's proven before you go to construction. There's engineering firms that are independent from us, independent from the district, and independent from the utility company to make sure that there's no hidden agenda. From there, what they do is they try to make sure a very conservative number based upon your last 12 to 24 months usage history to make sure that if there's been a spike during the football season, for instance, at the high school, they account for that, and obviously the slowdown in the summertime at the elementary school when there's nobody home, right? So they try to keep that in account and on record. So the program is set to basically keep it bill neutral for 12 months, and then the programs will give you up to 10 years of financing to go through it. It is structured as a loan, but it's basically like off-balance sheet financing. So it's, again, it's invisible money. It's just held between you and PG&E, and the collateral is the energy usage versus the energy savings. And they basically, they pay for it all up front, loan you the savings up front, and then they use the savings to pay for it over time. So that's how they do it to where there's no fiscal impact to the district. Okay?
That last sentence one more time. That was, they take the savings.
Yes, ma'am. So what they do is when we do the energy audit, right, we'll come back and we'll say, this is every year going to save, let's say, $10,000. What they're going to do is they're going to take that $10,000 in savings, and that's the collateral they're looking for to be able to give you the money to pay for all the work to get done. And then in the contract, which you'll see in the contract once we get them to you by the next meeting, you'll see there's 1 month where it's like, so what happens is they bill you on the very first page of your bill, and I'm sure you've seen it. They have all the bar graphs, right? It says, how are you doing this month versus last year and this month versus last month? You'll see the savings on that bar graph, and it'll say you've done this much better this month versus last month, or this month versus this month last year. And then on the very last page of the bill, so they give you the savings up front, and they bill you back about 95% of that savings on the back page of the bill to make it what they call bill neutral. But they structure it to make sure that there is no red that the district would experience. And then they're ultra conservative on the usage to make sure that most of the time you're going to use the lights longer than what they have on paper. They don't sit there at the end of the month and say, oh, you used it more, you owe me more money. They make it to where you guys, if you save more energy, the district keeps that energy. And so that's one benefit. The second benefit is your facilities folks, purchasing, no more guys going up and down ladders, no more recycling of light bulbs, no more buying of light bulbs, right? I mean, everything's set. Forget it. If anything happens, within the first month or two, there might be 1% to 2% that fail out of the box. That's just a factory issue. We fix those. For the next 12 months, we are full turnkey labor warranty service is part of this package with PG&E. After 12 months, we are still supporting you for the supply side. We will work with the factories if something does fail to replace the item. Say a whole classroom goes out, or if it's a failure issue, we've had the factory say, oh, we had a bad lot. They'll pay to replace the whole thing. That's happened a couple times. Very few, but it has. But ultimately, for the next 5 to 10 years, you guys should have no worries about maintenance, buying, recycling, anything to do with your lighting, inside or outside. And I believe in the high school, the ball field is included. Okay.
Any other questions, trustees? Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and for being here this evening.
Sure,
Thank
thank
you. So I'm just, for an example, I'm looking at the high school quote. And so I see on there, certainly the subtotal, and that's just, just the addition of all of the lights and things. So then the labor of 397,000. So how is that, where does that money come? How is that calculated?
So based upon the prevailing wage public works code, every zip code has a set prevailing wage rate that you must pay the electricians. What we do is we have a formula that says this fixture is going to take 40 minutes. The ball field lights in the stadium are going to take an hour and a half because you have the lifts that get way up there. And so we figure out how long, and so we've been doing this since 2007, so we have a pretty good idea, plus or minus maybe 10% of how long it's going to take. And so as we go through and we create the inventory list, we know, okay, this item takes 30 minutes, this one takes 20. At the end, we'll have a total of how many hours it's going to take to install the project. And we know how many men we'll be able to send out here because we want to get it done within a relatively quick period of time. And so then what we do is we just figure out the hourly rate, figure out what is the prevailing wage rate for the zip code that you have to pay based upon DIR specs. And that's just the number times the men times the hours, and that's what is reflected here, right? Sure.
So it sounds like a prevailing wage, so that's good. But my question is, so who's paying for that? I mean, how are we getting a savings when we know we have $400,000 worth of labor to pay?
So it's there's an audit sheet. If you could pull up, whoever's got the control of the screen, there's an audit sheet that correlates with this, which is the high school. And at the very bottom, go to the summary, and you'll see the monthly savings. So ultimately, the hardware or the lighting is what creates the savings. You got to get it installed, right? So the program is set up to make it to where it's full turnkey. And if you look at the top right number, well, actually, I can't see it. There you go. That's the one, the one that's in the top. There you go. So if you look at the top left side, it's the watts and the kilowatt hours is what we're trying to reduce. That is where the money is, and that is the value for the district, because that's what directly affects your billing. On the right, on the far right side, call it your 3 o'clock, that is what the dollars and cents would be as far as, well, how much is 264,000 kilowatt hours mean to you in a month, right? So then that'll tell you that's $7,482 a month of savings, which is $92,194 a year in savings, which then every one of those numbers after shows you $519,000 at 5 years, $1.2 million at 10 years, and those only reflect about a 6% rate increase. So the $400,000 or $300,000 question for labor, we have to show, it is like, there's about a 200-page report behind this. This is just a very simple few pages of a summary. We have to take photos of every single room, each different fixture in the room, the bulb, the wattage of the bulb, the ballast that drives that bulb, and we have to prove to them how long it's going to take that. And they've been doing this since, the program started in 2005, we started in 2007. They have a stat that says this should take this long. So they don't let you, there's no way you can say, well, something that should take 10 minutes is going to take you an hour. And so what they do is they make sure that they keep within a regulated statistic that they keep tabs on to make sure that the labor is adequate for the material, to make sure the material does its job to create that savings that you see on the spreadsheet, and the savings are what pays for this whole thing to work. But you have to have it installed, you have to have it warranted, and what happens is they want to make sure that through the life of the program, the district, the investment of the district, the asset which now you would own, is protected and it works to create that savings, because that's why they're paying for it. They want to pay for that savings, which you are the benefactor of, and then you're also the benefactor of the maintenance and the material costs that you no longer have to pay.
I have a couple questions. You talked about infrastructure.
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the infrastructure you're referring to? Is that breaker panels, cables, gate? I mean, does all of that have to be retrofitted as well?
No. So basically what we try to do is every one of these fixtures have to have wires that connect into a
Right.
junction box, right? With a lot of these fixtures, being that the old lighting is very hot. On the outside of that wire is a insulator.
Right.
Most of your wires, you'd be surprised, the insulation's gone, which if that touches something could create a spark, a fire hazard.
Okay.
You've got thousands of these throughout the district. It's impossible for you to know which ones are good, which ones are bad. So for us, our philosophy is if we touch it, we're obviously the last responsible for it. So we take it all the way into that junction box and replace that insulated wire to make sure it's going to last not only the warranty time, but the specification time, which is about a 25-year life on the product.
Okay. And then are most of these, when you're talking about the fixtures, because the new LEDs are coming all in one, right? So you don't necessarily, when that light goes out, you're changing the entire fixture again. You're not just necessarily always changing a bulb like in a lamp. Is that correct, what's going to be happening here as well?
So they're just like you've got fluorescence ballasts. Okay, so LEDs have a driver.
Right.
Potato.
Right.
Okay, it's the same thing. So if it goes out, that ballast, which usually that ballast will give you about a 75 to 100,000 hour life, that ballast is the weakest link in the entire system.
Okay.
Okay. If it goes out, that's usually the first thing we'll come back and fix. If you see part of the fixture dimmer than others, that's
Yeah.
a fixture issue.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll be able to, so what happens is if something goes out, you take a picture of it. That photo will tell us if it's completely out, do the driver. We'll try that first. We'll bring a fixture just in case it's not the driver. If it's half out, that's the bolt, that's the fixture. We'll bring the fixture knowing that the driver is probably good. We're just going to replace the fixture to make sure it's done right.
And drivers also, would the drivers, you can adjust those for wattage or they not
And color.
necessarily?
Wattage, so it's fixture specific.
Okay.
Right? So for instance, like these in here, this is more decorative.
Yeah.
Those down lights, you see those, that we call them can lights, which are above your heads that are
Right.
recessed in the ceiling. Inside the ceiling up top is a switch.
Okay.
You can change it from warm white to cool white, where you
Right.
have different colors through here, right? So one's brighter than another, right? It's all going to be the same color, okay? If you don't like that color, you flip the switch, warm it or brighten it, right? If you want it to look like a hospital, you just flip the switch. If you want it to look like your living room, you flip the switch the other way. If you want it to brighten, you can either put a if it's too bright, we'll put a dimmer on it. If it needs to be more intense, there's a switch to increase the wattage, okay? The spec is written for the lowest wattage to make sure you have the lowest savings on paper. If you guys want it brighter after, that'll be between you guys and your guys to basically switch those things up so that way you guys can do that one.
And when are we proposing for this? Is this a summertime project? If we're going to be swapping out all these lights?
We will be coordinating that with Mike. Mike will be coordinating this with EcoGreen.
Okay.
But in my conversation with my references, they've been in and out. They're really good. They work around our schedule, and they are flexible in the sense that they'll do after hours. So
Okay.
we're going to, when we schedule this with EcoGreen, it's going to be a time where there's going to be the least amount of disruption to classroom instruction.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I have one more
Sure.
question, sorry. No, please, go. Trustee Nomar, go.
This is probably kind of a naive question, but when you talk about the switch and you can change the light, is that like on a remote control? I mean, you talk about it's up here. Does somebody have to crawl up there and do it? I mean, how does that?
So great question. So once the contracts get released and you guys are like, this looks great, let's sign the contracts, we will on our dime come in and do demos for everybody to make sure that everybody has 2 cents to put in and say, I like that color, or I hate that color, right? It's too bright or it's not bright enough. Once you say, okay, that's the one, then we realize, let's order it, that's what's gonna go in, okay? You still have the ability to come back after we're done without having to rip the whole thing out and start all over and have an electrician do it, to where you just go up and if you're like, say somebody wants a different color over the desk, you just flip the switch, right? So it's very simple. The remotes are great. The factories that give a lot of those are not really around anymore, okay? That's the best way to put it. They're from overseas. They've had that was a great thing, but there's too many bugs that happen, so they made it more manual just to make sure that there is no issues with connectivity or receptiveness of the technology and the signals and all that. So let me say this. Every fixture we put in, the federal government and the state government, the Public Utility Commission and the Energy Commission created a standard that if you want their money, you have to give them your product, and they freeze the thing, burn the thing, test the thing until it's either a pass or fail. If it passes, then it says, that's a good product. We'll give you the money for it to be able to do the school. If it fails, don't even ask for the money. You're not even qualified. So everything we do has to be on this approved list to make sure that you have a guaranteed product from a guaranteed factory that's been around, and that you guys don't get a box with a guarantee in it that doesn't mean nothing. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm switching gears a bit here. What is our commitment to this then? When we sign a contract, are we committing to 10 years, 20 years?
Each one's different. The maximum is 10 years. Okay, the maximum amount is 10 years. The program, whatever the return on investment is for the school district, or the timeline that you're in the program is, that is basically substantially less than the life of the product and the content of that site. So they want to make sure that if they give it to you, that it's going to last longer than the program and longer than the warranty, which has gone through all these third-party testings to make sure that they can commit that to you. And so maximum is 10 years.
Okay.
As far as the commitment on the contract?
Yes, maximum is 10 years.
And then what happens after that?
There's no more financial liability of anything. The savings have paid for it. You reap all the savings, and you have probably another 15 years of life on the product. But it is at that point in time, the warranties would be over, right? So it'd be up to you if something goes out. Now, just same thing. Just take a picture of it, send it to us. I'm sure we can get you guys the product in case of onesie twosies go out 10, 12 years from now. We've done a lot of work in Laughlin and Las Vegas. We still have stuff that's working that we installed in 2007, believe it or not, right? And it's on all day long, 24/7, every single day. So we've gone through this enough times to realize a good product from a bad product. And we have the factories and the supply chain really accountable, would be the best way to say it. And so we want to make sure that you are protected, because our philosophy is we will come back. Our obligation is to come back. It's our obligation to fix it if it goes out under warranty. We still don't want to come back. We want to make sure that because it disrupts you guys, it disrupts the classroom, it costs everybody money. So there will be 1% to 2% that fail out of the box, which is just industry standard. Last year we saw about 0.5%. So we're even under industry standard. And that's why we make sure that for the first 6 months, they call it it's a burn-in cycle, to where after about 500 to 1,000 hours, figure you go buy a car, they say don't drive that car super hard for 500 miles. Same sort of concept, because everything, the heat, the energy, the electricity, it burns in, and then you'll see, was there a bad run, bad lot? We come back and fix that if there is. Okay?
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you for the comprehensive audits and quotes. And I think all of our questions are just, we want this to be a financial win for the district.
Yes.
My question, Dr. Vang, is we've had our presentation tonight. When will we approve this?
So I have a resolution that has been vetted through our legal counsel that will come to you next month. So that has to be board approved. And then Eco Green and PG&E are working closely on moving forward our on-bill financing. As he's shared, we've only got the primary school so far. So we're waiting for the other 3 schools. So as soon as we get those other 3, then we're rolling. So the first step is next month's board meeting approving that resolution. It'll start off with the public hearing, and we can have a public hearing and approve the resolution at the same board meeting, but those will be 2 separate agenda items. So we'll do the public hearing first, then we'll approve the resolution, and hopefully by then, I will have all of the on-bill financing contracts, because so far I only have the one for the primary school, but I know Eco Green has more experience in this, and MCE is also involved in this. So between MCE, Eco Green, and PG&E, is that enough acronyms? I'll be working closely with them to push these, the other 3 contracts through.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, so and with that, so it was a public hearing though, is that correct? Yes. So do we need to have a first read public hearing and then the public hearing like we have in the past?
Nope. According to our legal counsel, it's just a public hearing, the same February's board meeting, public hearing first as the agenda item, followed by the resolution.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. 7D, presentation, educational specifications. Dr. Vang.
All right, I'm just going to hand this over to Trent with Motive Studio. We've been at all the sites. We've crashed some of the staff meetings in addition to business ops, a community meeting, and so we finally have some data that Trent is going to share with the board at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vang. Just kind of an overview of what we've done. What we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to touch on the data gathering process. We're going to talk about our survey input, both the participant profiles and the areas of focus, and then the results, and then we'll talk about next steps to kind of bring this process to fruition. So, data gathering, what did we do? We worked with the district to develop a series of ranked and open-ended questions. We developed an interactive survey. We met with staff and community to gather that input, and now we're kind of analyzing those results with the idea that we'll summarize that data and begin to integrate that into the educational specifications. And then we'll come back both tonight to present the highlights and then at the end to present the overall EdSpec draft for you to approve and move forward with. So what did we do? We did some initial output and outreach. We went to every school. We did after-school meetings. We did a community meeting. We met with the Business Operations Committee, and we didn't really get what we wanted, right? Just for complete transparency, the participation was a little overwhelming. We didn't realize, kind of when to come interact with the staff at the best time. The intent of the initial ranking questions was a bit fuzzy. Some of you took those the initial pass. We took that input. And then we really just said, we need to do some more outreach. We need to fine-tune this a little bit and start back over, right? So we did that. We did a follow-up outreach. We crashed all of the staff meetings. We did an in-person meeting at the high school. We did virtually participants with our RLS team. We did in-person meetings at the primary school and the elementary school. And what we saw is participation increased significantly. Right, and we went up from just a handful to over 44 respondents. The rewritten questions we believe provided greater clarity, and we gathered a lot of the data that we need. So I think what we did a good hard reset. I really want to thank both the administrators and the staff for kind of working through that process with us. But I think we got a lot of really good information based on our second pass. So thank you for the extra time, and then thank you for our district participants as well. So what do we do? Just kind of some follow-up here. I know this is kind of a little bit of a Yelp review, but we did see that we saw some good feedback here. We got some, 4.7s, 4.8s out of 5s, right? And a lot of that follow-up was that they're easy to follow, there's clear structure and purpose, and there was fun interactions, right? So that second pass, I think, was really, really important, and we saw that we have really, really good feedback. We had over 70 participants there when we rounded all of that back up. So we think going out and doing that second data gathering effort was really important, and we got a lot of what we wanted to get. So what did we get? I love coming here to talk because you are a very data-driven district, right? Again, no one really wants to come and hear my opinion. So this is what we got, right? You're going to see these. You will see all of these reports, every single one of them, the first pass, the second pass, all of that is going to be in an appendix, the EdSpec. And so this is just going to kind of be a distillation, right? One of the things that we did at the beginning was a little word cloud to say, what did we get? And what we want to see here is we really want to see teacher hit here, right? Because that's the outreach that we're doing. We really want to see community membership. But we also want to see on these little bar charts, we want to see heavy participation in the far right, right? Because what that means is we've been at the district and we've been with the campus for more than a decade, right? So we want people that really know your schools and we want people that really know their campus. And that's what we got, right? So for the primary school, we had 12 participants, 50% reported over a decade, and 75% of those combined participants had over a decade experience in the district and the campus, right? So we think that's good representative, but also really good sort of knowledge of the district and that campus. We see that trend continuing at the elementary school. We're getting even a little bit more of that sort of deeper knowledge, like that decade-long experience. And then again, at the high school, we see even more of that. You'll see that 29 of those total participants have over a decade of experience in the district and at the campus level. These are people, these are teachers, these are community members that have been here a long time, and they really, really know these facilities. So that's exactly what we want to see. I'd be very, very concerned if our bar charts were really, really high on the far left. Hey, I'm new here. I haven't had much experience, but we have a lot of people with a lot of institutional knowledge of your school speaking into this survey. So we're really happy to see those results. And we think what that means is that we can definitely rely on that because they've been in these environments for a long time, and they're definitely committed to those campuses and your district. So what did we find? when we reworked this, right, you're going to see these little bar charts going left to right. We kind of came back and said, out of all of these areas of focus, right, help us focus the board, their areas of focus, help us focus where they need to pay attention to. So what we asked was, hey, if you leave this on the far left, that's you saying, we're doing good here. And you can kind of see that at the bottom, right? And if you want to say, I really want the board to focus and pay attention to this, drag this bar all the way to the right, okay? So if we started to see things on the far right, that would be a little concerning to us because we'd start to say, hey, our teachers in our community are saying we really need to pay attention to these. What we're seeing is at the primary school, your average score is below 5, right? Which means that overall, even if we're looking at all of these things in general, we're still doing pretty good when it came to ranking all of these. You'll start to see that spaces for individual learning kind of pop up. There's a big desire for paying attention to the performance spaces at the primary school, right? And that's why that bar kind of migrates to the right. So you'll be able to kind of get a quick visual download as to where they'd like you to pay attention to when we look at these charts, right? And that's just sort of how it reads. If it reads to the left, we feel like we're doing pretty good. If it's going to the right, we want to pay attention to that. So we'll see here that they really want to say, at the primary school, what we saw a lot of was we're interested in performance areas, right? We want to kind of punch up the barn and make sure we have that. And we're also really interested in outdoor playgrounds and play areas, right? And that's really, from our understanding, associated with more of the TK areas, but campus-wide as well. And again, you have all of these information without any sort of edits from us. That'll be included in the document as well. So you'll be able to flip through that. When we come to the elementary school, we'll see those kind of even migrate more to the left, right? Which again kind of gives us we're feeling pretty good about what we're doing here. You'll see that there's some desire for a dedicated music classroom. I think some of that distillation at the elementary school is more associated with the performance center. You have a beautiful, obviously an incredibly beautiful facility there. There's some AV needs that came up there that we'll kind of summarize, but more just sort of a technological buffering or kind of build up at the elementary school there. But again, overall, that score drops to 3.7. We're really kind of trending towards that left side of when we ask what to focus on, they're feeling like we're doing pretty good here, right? That bar would be, again, all the way to the far right if we had areas of concern. At RLS, same trends are coming through. These are going to be ranked mixed, right? Because we did this together with the high school and RLS. We used some extraction tools because we asked participants to identify, where they're from. But we'll start to see that there's a bit of commingling here because we did this one as on campus at the high school, but virtually with RLS. So there's a little bit of overlap there. But again, the trend holds, right? The numbers are lower. Right, we're seeing this 3.0, and we're starting to see spaces for individual learning kind of popping up. We do have some of these preliminary or perimeter kind of pushes for collaborative spaces and outdoor play areas, spaces for community use are definitely what the teachers feel being met, right? Because those areas of focus are, again, sort of pushed to the left. So overall, I think really, really good trends, right? When we talk to the teachers, they feel like we're doing pretty good and that there's no very strong drastics, we need to all pay attention to this, right? So we think we feel that's really good feedback here and should be, obviously I'd like you to take from that some confidence that you're paying attention to the right things and that the staff has responded by sort of bolstering that through this effort. Okay? Any questions before we go on? Okay. Talking fast, so please feel free to stop me. Okay, so what did we do in addition to that is we just opened it wide open and we said, give us sort of any interactive input. We walked through a whole series of questions and to really kind of distill what is it that they want us to focus on? What do they want to take from this? Again, at the primary school, we saw outdoor learning, again, for primarily the TKK areas, but for all of those areas as well. So we're going to put an emphasis on that. There's an ask for flexible, age-appropriate furniture, right? And some of that furniture project, I think you can start to look at, doesn't have to go through DSA. It's something that we can kind of address through a slow rollout, and just making sure that we can do that. But there's some ideas of how do we begin to get sort of small group, whole group, independent modes, multiple areas of education going in those classroom spaces. And so I think that's going to come consistently through all of the output that we reach. So we might want to start thinking about, and we're going to encourage you in the ed spec to maybe do some pilot programs or begin to talk with teachers about how to do different engagements in the classroom when it comes to that, because it is going to extend, it extends past just desks and chairs. It's how the kids interact with the classroom. So we think that we can definitely kind of start to do some pilot programs there to really invest in that and really get those classrooms as engaging as we can. Okay. Shared spaces should support performance, gathering, and library media features. There's a desire at the primary school to just improve the multipurpose room in the performance area, right? They have a nice space. I think we could do a lot through some equipping of that, right? And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but I think that's going to be a good add for that campus, just to give them a bit more of a robust performance area. And then teachers and staff workspaces, storage, copy, and printing capacity. There's an ask for more collaborative space and some workrooms there as well. Right. All of these, I think, really come back to the idea that these basic needs are met. We have some needs that we'd like to address, and we do believe that we have some needs that could definitely help the educational experience there. But again, those bases are covered, and we're moving forward proactively to address those, or we'd encourage you to. Okay. Again, St. Helena Elementary School, I will say they had the best charcuterie plate there I've seen in a very long time, so thank you for that. You guys were amazing hosts. What we see coming from there is this idea that warm, safe, and dry were focused, right? That really is awesome to see because that aligns with all the FMP work that we see. So we understand that the district goals with the facility master plan is also translating down to the staff. They're starting to see that. They're starting to prioritize that. So that alignment's really great, right? We really want to see that alignment. Obviously, we're doing some programs there to restore the flooded buildings and doing some of that work on campus. So they'll see some immediate response to that this summer. And then reliable technology, there's an ask for some technology backbone work that we can do, so we can kind of deep dive that moving forward. You're going to see this, again, sort of this flexible space, movable furniture. Again, it's going to come up at every campus, but I think, again, we can look at how that interacts at the primary level, how that interacts at the elementary school, and then also the middle school and high school level. Shared spaces. For targeted modernization, the library media center and auditorium were identified as really high value, sort of unique assets to the campus. And again, I've never seen performing arts spaces in an elementary school like you have there. So let's just keep sort of putting the investment into that to keep that amazing facility going. But also the library media center becoming something a little bit more, or sort of a tune-up there was the request of the campus, and kind of how that develops. So we'd like to tuck that in there, and that'll be presented in the NSPEC as well. Something to just think about as that develops and moves forward. Site improvements to focus on, playground blacktop resurfacing. We're going to be doing some of that work this summer, but not a lot of it, right? We're going to be doing more like path of travel restoration, drainage type stuff, but we'll tackle some of that. But we want to keep that on our radar to move forward with that as well. One of the things that we're going to highlight here, more electrical outlets, you will see that all over the place, right? You're going to see that 100 times in every single one of those reports. And so what I'd like to do is we'll work with Dr. Vang and Michael to kind of look at maybe ways to bring power in strategic areas to kind of relieve that pressure. It was definitely consistent across the campuses, and I think that we could probably do that very similar to how we've addressed everything, identify needs, systemic rollouts, and just sort of taking those needs down as we can, sort of in a process. Again, nothing big, nothing sweeping. You have a lot of good assets. Let's manage them wisely, just to the best of the benefit of the students. Okay. All right. RLS, staff workspaces, storage and prep capacity, they're stretched, right? That's our understanding. We kind of agree with that based on that. So we'd look at, the participants highlighted a need for larger workrooms across the campus. I think, again, this might have rolled in with some of the high schools. So when we start to talk about RLS in the high school, a lot of common concerns, really just about how these teachers can find the workrooms, the support space, the copying, that kind of stuff, the nuts and bolts that create friction points for them in their day-to-day, how we can relieve that with some facilities. I think we can reach into that with some smaller interventions and really provide a lot of relief. Right, and so we'll talk about that as we move forward. Reliable technology, again, that's going to pop up on multiple campuses, so we just want to kind of maybe do an audit of that, start to see how we can relieve some of that pressure. It's just as frustrating in the classroom as at home when the devices don't work, so we'll kind of keep our eye on that. We'll use that as a firm foundation to go talk to our tech departments and make sure we have that aligned. Shared spaces modernized to match. The locker room, multipurpose room came up as a desired modernization space at the middle school. And I think that's, I think when you look at the good work that you've done across that campus, that's probably the area that needs it the most. So again, right, we've talked about cycling campuses every 4 years we kind of come back. RLS is not going to, RLS was the last one, so we did the primary school, did the elementary school. As we cycle back to RLS, we want to just kind of put that up on the radar, as that would be a high priority for the staff in the campus. Okay? And then flexibility support space. Again, this is that movable furniture. What we feel is that these teachers are very actively trying to embrace a dynamic change in curriculum. They're doing a great job for it, but it means a lot of different things, right? School is no longer sitting in neat, orderly rows with a whiteboard talking. A lot of this is changing. A lot of how the students interact with those spaces are changing. So it'd probably be good to kind of sit down from a district level to say, how can we support that with furniture, just in different interactive areas and nodes? And I think those could be a pretty easy lift when it comes to it. And I say easy, I understand that there's purchasing and all of that goes along. Easy from it's not going to involve DSA. It's not going to involve a lot of the administrative oversight. You can do it quickly, and I think we can provide some impact and relief for our teachers. Okay, and then the high school, student wellness and campus safety remain central areas of focus, and I think that's awesome, right? I think that is aligned with everything that I've heard from you as a board, and I think that's getting promoted out from the teachers as well. They talked a lot about the wellness center, and then sort of this idea that they would like to look at, updated security cameras, and I know we're working on that as well. Implemented strategic fencing, we've talked about that, and then we've done a lot of good work with the local authorities to create emergency response mapping. So we are definitely addressing campus safety and making sure student wellness is a top priority as we move forward. You'll see the staff workspace and storage come back here as well. And that, again, is I think we can probably do some targeted interventions to relieve those friction points. And it'd be good to look at both RLS and the high school to do that. Technology is, again, something that popped up. So we'll make sure we do that we'll include that in our sort of district-wide comprehensive review. Am I go? No, you're the authority. You're the authority. I don't want to step on your toes here. No. And then the sort of the shared spaces that need what the staff would like us to pay attention to as we kind of come back and look there. Locker room is huge. Gymnasium is huge. The library, kind of how that library evolves into to its new sort of iteration as technology evolves is that too. So we'd encourage that, as we kind of loop back through, that's what the staff would like us to pay attention to. The representatives there voice that. Outdoor areas and fields are important program assets. And so we talked about the fields, the courts, the quads. That sort of, there are some nuts and bolts challenges there with the quads and the drainage, but also the fields are for our high priorities. And we're really happy to see that kind of aligns with that FMP prioritization work we did as well. So whenever we sort of see these two things come into alignment, right? We talked about that big wheel. Whenever we start to see that overlap, we're feeling really good about that because what we're saying from a facility standpoint and educational standpoint are aligning, and that gives the board clear direction as to how to move forward. Okay. So overall, I think, thank you for your patience and sort of that revamp, both the input too. We had a lot of board member participants in that, and that revamp of that. The survey was incredibly effective, and thank you for your input on that. We are now writing the draft based on these findings. Unless someone raises their hand and says, no way, knucklehead, drop some of that, we'll definitely take that input. So please review that. Dr. Vang can provide the total surveys. If you want to flip through those, we can certainly give you those. We do plan to have a draft to you by the end of January. All right, I won't be back. I don't think I'll be back in February. We'll give you some time to read that, and then we'll come back with a March adoption. So we'll kind of work through a cycle of revisions, both on the district side, but also then on the board side, and then we'll come back in March, unless you want some more time to adopt the final educational specifications. That was a lot. Questions, comments, anything? I feel like I really shorted you with no spreadsheet on this one.
Trustees, questions?
One question, and this is maybe just a follow-up more in-house. 3 out of the 4 campuses talked about technology issues and devices not working. And since we have a refresh program and a plan in place, the outlets aside, maybe in a Friday memo, you can update us on how significant of an issue is this really that we have? I mean, I'm thinking if 3 out of 4 schools commented on it and it made it to your list, are we looking at a lot of devices? Nothing to go into tonight, just perhaps you can update us on that.
I think that's the beauty of this, right? This definitely gives us those area of focus, so we'll make sure to kind of close those gaps as well and bring that back for sure.
My question, so all of these are items that would roll into line items on our facilities master plan. So it would be increased scope probably in many of our line items, correct?
I think we want to talk about how we implement that, right? So the facility master plan is a really wide net that we cast over the facilities. They would kind of come through and help us possibly prioritize some projects over the other, right? As we start to look at an alignment with the ed spec, but I don't know if necessarily we've looked at significant scope expansion unless we want to start saying a significant portion of our facility master plan is focused on warm, safe, and dry, right? If we want to start to take on things as significant as we are going to modernize the locker room and multipurpose room at the middle school, we are going to modernize the locker room and gymnasium at the high school. How that scope expansion happens will definitely be a conversation that we can have. I don't plan on rolling a significant modernization of the gym into the FMP without having some discussion with you. if that makes sense. So if we choose to expand some of these programs, we can definitely come back and do that. We've kind of always talked about facilities as a process, right? I do plan on kind of touching back every year with you guys to talk about that. But there are, when we start talking about that, HVAC at the gym was aligned on there. If we choose to expand those, we can, but I don't necessarily encourage us to make a dramatic shift to that prioritization just based on this work alone. It'll become a tool that informs that.
So we're doing it because the state is requiring us. Why are we doing this if we're not actioning it? So I guess maybe are they little rider projects? Like I'm thinking of bills going through Congress. Are these little add-ons with existing line items? Because
This is going to be another touch point.
these all make sense. I'm not trying to say they don't, but what are we going to do with it?
It's in my mind, it's another touch point to help you make complicated facility decisions. If you want me to come back, we can definitely come back and expand all of that scope to include that. But what we really want to do is make sure that we want to see what we saw. A lot of that, right? When we go back to the elementary school and they're saying we want to prioritize the warm, safe, and dry, we see that. We do understand that the fields are important and those are prioritized in our facilities, deferred maintenance plans. We want to do that to touch back to make that. I don't want this to be interpreted as a wish list that we immediately roll into all of our FMP data. That
Right, because a lot of them have modernization per campus. There's a big bucket for that. So I guess I would think a lot of these things are already embedded.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's my assumption, and it's not smart to assume. So.
Yeah, I think when we look at that, there are a lot of these line items. To say how far we take these modernizations is where we do that, and how we steer that, right? Because what we want to do, ideally, is to say, again, we don't have all the money that we need, so we're making smart and informed facility decisions. How we spend those modernization dollars definitely need to be informed by this EdSpec process, right? So we'll say things like we need to prioritize our technology backbone. We need to make sure when we modernize that we look at our electrical outlet distribution and make sure that we probably go above the code minimum distribution and make sure that we bring these elements in. That's sort of how those become actionable, because what we really want to do is leave and say, maybe we say, okay, the carpet makes another couple years, but we get the electrical outlets in there. I want you guys to be able to make informed facility decisions that are both informed from a financial standpoint. When we start talking about district priorities, state funding, that kind of stuff, that more analytical, but also the desires of the teachers and the community, which is kind of how this document would supplement that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's important because as we talk about warm, safe, and dry, the input from staff is really, really important. And if we are, looking at the draft that you sent us with all the facilities needs, there's more on those needs that fall into warm, safe, and dry. I don't want, after the staff has spent so much time sharing, I don't want them to not feel heard.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that concerns me a little bit, because while all of their ideas are really important, it doesn't fall in line with warm, safe, and dry. So for there to be just explanation of this process as it is with us, with the rest of the staff.
Absolutely.
Just to continue to have that open, just conversation about why and behind it, all the decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, and so kind of taking up the same subject is, so then would it be wise for us to, before the March adoption, to look at the items that have been, through this process and prioritize them?
What I can do is touch back and say, these are the items that I see. This is where I believe this is where I believe that they're housed, right? And this is how I'd see that they would inform that decision, right? So when we start talking about, on your facility list, right, there is nothing identified for furniture for these campuses. If you want us to incorporate a line item for furniture, absolutely, we can definitely do that, right? And we could put that through the exact same matrix, because we have heard that it's a consistent need, right? If we're starting to say modernization, power authorities, that's where these things tuck under as guiding principles, right? So when we look at modernization efforts, we need to make sure that we tuck back into the technology. We need to make sure that we tuck back into the power distribution to do that. They become checkpoints that inform the design process as to how those modernizations are developed. But I will admit, absolutely, the current matrix that we have does not have a line item for furniture, right? But we could also start it, so we can attack that kind of two ways. One, I can add that, right? And absolutely, because we've created that living document, we can tuck that right in, prioritize it straight across. Or we could talk with Dr. Vang about saying, hey, here's a furniture allocation. We're going to start rolling through and just sort of biting this off as an operational expense every year. We'll make sort of similar to how we did the hardware, similar to how we're doing these sort of rolling modernizations. We can work it in different ways. So if what we're hearing is, great, take all this information, but start to provide us some actionability to it, absolutely, I think we can do that for you, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Thanks so much, Trent.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a 5-minute comfort break now that we're done with presentations, and then we will be back. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we are back, and we are now going to take a look at our student learning and achievement items. We're going to begin with 8A, presentation on SHUSD pathways in mathematics. Mr. Lewis.
Wow, that
Good
sounds
evening.
like a lot when you say it. I was just thinking we're just doing an update on math. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hi.
I'm glad to be back. It's like I think I'm still carrying the winter break with me, and I'm still trying to get my brain and my legs to go with us here. So I know most of you, probably all of you, have taken a look at the slides. And so the bottom line is things are going well with math, but we'll break it down. And as you remember, I guess it was around this time last year, maybe Olivia, we were talking about options for eighth graders taking integrated 1. So this is our first year implementing that and having 5 kids come over to the high school for period 1 integrated 1. And things are going really well for those kids, really well. They're thriving. My quote unquote data collection was looking at semester grade data, talking to the teachers, checking with Ben on the pathways and all that. So that was, and I talked to the teachers who have these kids in their class a couple times during the semester, and not once did I hear concerns about how they were doing, and so it's going well. And as we all know too, we had the cohort of incoming 9th graders who did not have that option for integrated 1 in 8th grade. So if they had done the summer online course, and by the way, these 2 cohorts of kids there was a kind of a screening process that was intentional for both kids that involved grades, CAS scores, benchmark exams, teacher recommendations. So it was with thought and a process, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we have a cohort of 9th graders that took this summer integrated or Math 1 class, and they are in integrated 2. And as you can see, they're doing really well also, right? Thriving, I think is a fair word to say. And then moving through our pathways or our program, which we'll show a slide of that in a second. But as you know, we have 2 math dual enrollment programs. One is, I call it the pre-calc, but it's 106, 108. You can see the breakdowns there of how kids did. As we know, historically, this is a challenging course. And my own experience, and having taught these myself as a teacher, in some regards, pre-calculus can be more challenging than calculus itself, just depending on the nature of the class and what resources. But the kids are being successful in the sense that they're passing, right? Nobody's failing or dropping the program, right? So we have 15 kids enrolled in the pre-calc, or the 106, 108, as it's called in Napa Valley College, because it is a dual enrollment, and we call it that because it is a Napa Valley College class. And then our second dual enrollment math class is the calculus class. And you can see the breakdowns there. And things are going well there too, in the sense that kids are moving forward and being successful. And there's our teachers do a really good job of encouraging kids when they're coming out of integrated 2 or they're getting integrated 3. They're kind of going back and forth, trying to decide if they're going to go into pre-calc or calculus. Our teachers do a good job of encouraging them to kind of level up and push themselves, if you will, and support them. Teachers are really good at supporting the students across all the subject groups. We know that. So for those kids that, so some of those kids who have a C, for example, in calculus, are kids that 2 or 3 years ago didn't necessarily see themselves as math students, right? That they work harder. They're not necessarily the top A student, but they're in that classroom and they're engaged. They're thinking. They're well supported both by their peers, and by their teacher, and they want to stay, which I think speaks volumes to the quality of the program. Those kids may or may not necessarily follow a math or science and engineering, but to take a difficult class and acquire the skills of perseverance when a class is difficult, because that's going to happen in their future no matter what they study. So there's a lot to be said and gained from that experience. So, we've seen this. This isn't as large as I would like, but I think we've all seen this, but this is just a reminder of what our pathways is. And I'll just to comment on, because I've, over the course of my career, I've worked with different school districts and seen how they put together their math program to support kids going through their high school math program to ensure that they're ready for, obviously meeting their A through G requirements and their graduation requirements, but above and beyond that, being prepared for higher level collegiate work, right? And so and my feeling, and I realized this soon after I started working, excuse me, in St. Helena, this is, especially for a small district, this is a very robust pathways that the high school and the district is put together for kids to come in and lean into math and engineering, right? Maybe I missed it, but we have our, oh my gosh, what's Mr. Davis's class? The engineering, is it engineering technology, and our programming. It's something to be, and I know we are proud of it, but it's something that, just to hear it one more time, that our program that we set up for our students for math, science, and engineering and preparing for careers in that is really solid. So, some kind of anecdotal feedback or data, if you will. These were in talking to Madison Butts, who teaches our Napa Valley I can't say that tonight. Our dual enrollment classes. I'm going to stay on that route. And so I put these two quotes up, but something I put up there, and it's interesting because it's an extension of the classroom environment that we've been working on with establishing for the last 3 or 4 years, especially with Madison's classroom, is that he's had at least 5 or 6 students return back, who are in college, and they have similar but different stories about, it's not uncommon for our graduates to form study groups in college, but what's happened with a few of them is they'll go to the library and they'll ask for whiteboards, and they'll just start doing their work up on the whiteboards because they feel more comfortable with it. And what's happening is other students in the library are coming over, and these study groups are starting to evolve simply because our graduates are going and kind of self-creating these environments to learn together in the library, which I think is pretty awesome. So I just wanted to share that piece. It wasn't on the slide, but that's really cool. And my presentation is super short because it's always short when things are going great. And I know there's always good questions. So any good questions or any questions at all you got? And I've got Ben here to back. He's got my back on any questions I can't answer.
I just have an informational question, not having anybody in the school system at the moment. Like when I was in school, math was like algebra, geometry, trigonometry. Can you just kind of give me an idea of like what is an integrated 1? What is an if I could say the word, integrated 2? Like.
So the way I always think of this is we still have algebra 1, we have geometry, we have statistics, we have probability, and when Ben Cinta was in my class at Pittsburgh High, he was there for geometry because we had algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, right? That's what most of us were products in the system. So, and I don't remember the year that it started, but now there's 2 pathways that you can do in the state of California. You can do the traditional pathway, which is the one we were just describing. The second one is the integrated 1, 2, and 3. And I think of it as you take those subjects and you put them in a big salad bowl, you mix them up, and you put them in 3 new bowls. And so in your integrated 1, you have the key components of beginning algebra 1 with geometry, with some probability and statistics. And then in the second year, similar idea. So you're progressing through those content pieces or those topics instead of making them isolated, one-off 1 year. And I believe it's better for the students to get that exposure and build their, spatial understanding and knowledge and their algebraic processes. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's what that is.
Thanks.
Sure. That's a good question.
Thank you very much. One of my questions that I have had from students and parents is why can't my current freshman take integrated math 3 pre-calc as a sophomore instead of regular integrated 3? And just so you know, when I ask why does it matter, the integrated 3 pre-calc is listed as honors or pending honors. So it's a grade bump. So the kids want a grade bump. So you got these high achieving kids that are hearing that it's honors level. Well, why can't I take that? And then I'll also still go back to the dual enrollment pre-calc and then be a senior in calculus. So the question was like, why only incoming juniors? If the quality of the content is good going through, and I couldn't answer that question, and you don't have to answer it here, but that's something that I have heard a few years or been asked a few years in a row.
I could do an okay job. I feel like Ben you want to step up and you're going to provide much more detail to that than me.
Yeah, we've had 3 students in my history here do that, all of whom have regretted it because it accelerates their math instruction even more. Because even though integrated 3 with pre-calculus does a good job of getting kids prepared for calculus or Napa Valley College Math 120, 121, it's definitely not equivalent to doing the full solid year of integrated Math 3, which I would say is more of a gatekeeper course. So, it is designed to get kids to calculus. If you remember, if everybody were starting at integrated Math 1, which is what we used to do, it was implemented to make sure that kids still had a pathway to calculus. So the 3 kids that did that in the past didn't have a viable senior course in mathematics because we don't offer anything beyond Napa Valley College Math 120, 121. Now you're throwing a new wrinkle in there and saying taking 106, 108, which would be the logical best pathway, especially because a semester of college counts as a year of high school. So that's how we end up with some kids getting 8 years of math on their transcript, right? But it's not, if you're a STEM major, which really, if you're going the 120, 121 route, I mean, you really want to have solid, you don't want to rush something and try and condense some pre-calculus into integrated Math 3.
Sorry, I wasn't saying that. I was actually saying instead of taking normal integrated 3, take the integrated 3, the honors one, and then still do pre-calc and still do calc.
Right, that's what I'm
Okay,
saying. That was
sorry.
the new wrinkle I'm talking about. But then you're still shortchanging integrated 3 on some level because you're adding more topics on top of it. So having done this for years and years and years, you want a solid foundation in integrated Math 3. Go to like if you're, which we're now retracked, right? We have students now in integrated 2 as freshmen. But spending more time in integrated 3 rather than layering on more topics in pre-calculus is what's best for them in the long run. And the course is designed for you to skip over that 108, 106, 108 course to get directly to calculus. So even though you're saying, oh, well, I want to take 106, 108 and have more rigor as a sophomore, there would be nothing to allow me to preclude them from going into 120, 121, which is not advisable. We don't have anything beyond that. And then and we saw it for those 3 situations, we saw outside support at Napa Valley College. Okay, maybe there's something that the college can do, but it never worked out with the student schedule. You know, obviously we're not going to bring a course for one student. So it's not advisable and it doesn't tend to work well. So.
I think it was really about grade bump. I'd like the grade bump, so why can't I have the grade bump?
Yeah,
yeah. And then I guess what I'm also hearing is that if a student knows they like math early, regardless of what they're thinking about as a career, because they're probably not thinking about that, but coming in at integrated 2 gets you through all of those solidly.
Correct.
Okay.
Principal Cinto, I guess I'm confused. So if the sophomores, just help me understand this. If the sophomores, if you feel that if they aren't ready to do the integrated trig because it's not enough integrated 3, then why would the juniors be ready for that model before they go into calculus?
Well, one, they've had more time at our school,
Okay.
right?
Because they've had the the integrated 1 and the integrated 2 at the school, so they've had a more,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And it's, again, it was designed to we wanted to create a pathway to calculus when we were starting everybody at integrated math 1. That was the design of that course, knowing that we were detracking at all sites, right? That was the intention of that course. So to make that an option for a sophomore and then basically reduce integrated 3 instruction, which again, I think is, and you'll see in my subsequent presentation when it comes to state testing and all of those things, you really want to have a solid foundation there. So we're already accelerating as it is now. So to do that even more would not be advisable. I mean, again, I confirm with the counselors today, all 3 students that did that in the past regretted that decision for what it did for their subsequent instruction. So as much as it might be an ambition to get a grade bump, it's not advisable.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I think about what do we do with those star mathematicians who could be a sophomore that take integrated 3 and trig and then could go into NVC math 120, 121 their junior year. Just what I hear you that you say we don't provide, it was difficult to provide another college course. It doesn't line up with their schedule. Do you feel like we're giving a disservice to those kids?
I don't,
or?
not at all. And you can look at schools across California, and I don't know any, and I talked to Dr. McClay about this earlier in the year, that offer anything beyond calculus.
Okay.
And I would also say, and as much as we're talking about these star students, and I shared this with Mr. Lewis as well, the 5 students that are in integrated Math 2 here at the high school have deficiencies in their mathematical understanding. So we gave the initial star assessment. 2 are at level 1, 2 are at level 2, and there's another at level 3. So just because they're doing well academically doesn't mean that they have gaps. They don't have gaps in their learning, and that's something we have to be in tune to, because the longer those gaps exist, the more they're going to evidence themselves in later instruction. So we want to make sure that we're making wise decisions around their learning, knowing that sometimes those gaps will evidence themselves later.
Okay.
So we don't want to rush them through. But
Got
go
it.
ahead. You want to?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think the current culture, or the culture for education, especially with math for years for all, across the United States, is the way we use the word acceleration. And about 15 years ago, I and a bunch of colleagues, the conversation should not be about acceleration, the conversation should be about enrichment. So for example, when all 9th graders were taking integrated 1, the pivot was, okay, well, how can we get kids to calculus by senior year? So let's get creative. This was the state of California, right? So let's get creative and take integrated 3 and trig and just make them as prepared as they can to be successful in calculus. So it was a pivot to make that happen, an adjustment. The sacrifice was, to Mr. Cinto's point, is that the kids were not getting that deep enrichment in Math 3. It was somewhat sacrificed, but the teachers knew what they were doing and could get them the essentials they needed to get to calculus, because that was not, otherwise that wouldn't be an option for a 9th grader coming and taking integrated 1. So now that we have 8th grader or 9th graders in the integrated 2, they can take a more enriched experience with that integrated 3, so that we can hopefully not have the experiences that we were saying with 3 kids saying, I wish I hadn't done that, right? And that's a hard one to sell to kids, especially when we're throwing in, and I know it's separate, but the grade bump when you're talking to, but it's real. I mean, kids talk about that, right? But at least in my career and seeing what it's, there's a sense of, and they wouldn't call it a race, or parents wouldn't call it a race, but it kind of feels that way, like let's get there, let's get there, let's get there. And I understand that. I raised 3 kids myself that went through the school system, all of them different. But as adults, we know there's so much more that comes after that. And so I think it's great that we have the opportunities that we have integrated 3, so those kids can have a more enriched experience. So long term, they can experience more success with whatever mathematics they take, wherever that is. So.
Okay. Thank you.
One more, just quick. My understanding is you are not required to take 4 years of math as a student. Am I right on that? Would you kind of guesstimate, like what % of our kids leave having 4 years of math underneath there?
I thought of that question too, and I don't have an answer, but Mr. Cinto is really good at numbers in his head. Let's see if he's got this one.
Processing.
That's a tough one. I don't want to misspeak, but historically, because that question has been asked year after year, And I don't know, Mr. Heller might recall at 1.2, but I feel like it 85%, 75%, 85%. Because again, now when you say 4 years of math, some students are in a situation where they've had to repeat math for a fourth year, not because they want to, but because our graduation requirements are what they are. But I would say we have really strong 4-year math numbers, right? Because I'm going to put statistics and AP statistics in that. We have a number of students that are taking math in their senior year. But if you want an exact number, I will get it for you.
I want an exact number
All
down
right.
to the,
You'll probably get it tomorrow.
no.
I'll say it's the highest percentage in St. Helena across all Napa County, whatever that number is. That part I'm rest assured. Yeah.
Yes, I'd
Just
like
to
a
get
10-year
competitive for a second.
comparison study, please, over every student. Just kidding.
I have one question. On slide 5, the 18 seniors that are enrolled in the 121, are you able to tell us the pathway those 18 students took to get to that course? I mean, I know I'm not asking you to go student 1, student 2, but I mean, what would be their normal,
About 50% came integrated 2, integrated 3, 106, 108, 120, 121. The other 50% came through the integrated 3 with the trig pathway. So the accelerated in your junior year. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah.
That's it for now.
Alrighty, any other questions? Okay, Mr. Martinez,
come
do you
back
have a
another
question?
day.
Or a comment?
Thank you.
No, but I mean, I think that the trig or the integrated 3 and like the pre-calculus, the one you could take junior is really great. I didn't take it, but I really regret not taking it because, right now I'm in pre-calculus, but as a senior I could have been in calculus, so it's just something I wish I should have done.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to move on to 8B, information on flag football at St. Helena High School.
All right.
Yes. Hello. All right, here we are.
All
Mr.
right,
Cinto and Mr.
Now I'm
Farrell.
officially up here.
Okay.
Yeah. I was planning my funny intro about selling my house after the eco-friendly eco-green report on
Right.
PG&E bills. I was like, I'm going to go live off grid somewhere. But anyway, thank you for hearing us tonight. Before I begin, and Mr. Farrell's here with me, huge thank you to Mr. Farrell, who really has a pulse on our students, really has a pulse on athletics, not only in our area but beyond, and who, I can't think of a better way or different way to say it, but is really like a dog with a bone when it comes to something like this. So we've had this presentation ready since December. We were and thank you, Mr. Heller. We as much as I wanted to make it happen right away, we put together a proposal that we sent district administration about our plan for hopefully starting Saints flag football next year. Oh, and I got the clicker. All right. So this presentation is structured around demand and opportunity. Some are kind of plan and then the costs associated with bringing in football. The CIF puts out a report every year about student participation in sports. And I went and looked at flag football in particular. I have a bunch of friends in the East Bay whose daughters participate in flag football and are loving it. And it is the fastest growing sport, which you can kind of see there, an 84% jump from 23 to 25. I've provided the number of girl participants that have increased 84% and the number of schools participating 61%. I believe I sent these reports to Dr. McClay earlier in the month or last month, something like that. And for us, the idea is to make this a fall sport because that is the season at which we have the least amount of female participation, right? We have volleyball, which is a sport that is highly sought after, but we have a number of cuts in volleyball because you can only take so many on these traveling teams. Obviously, football is currently open to female students. We only have 2 of them doing it. And Ms. Hurdell's done a great job of expanding cross-country participation, but when you're talking about gender disparity in sports participation, it occurs mostly in the fall. So not wanting to put a bunch of effort and money into something that wouldn't produce a team. Mr. Farrell had worked with students here at this school to ascertain the interest. I reached out to Pope Valley and Howell Mountain. They gave me their numbers, and Mr. Ryan was kind enough to have one of his teachers solicit 8th grade girls at the school there. And we've identified at least 30 or more students who would be interested. I wager that number would increase when students find out that they don't make the volleyball team, which is part of high school sports. We try and maintain as much students on all of our teams, but sometimes it's just not only feasible economically, it's just not feasible to bring a bunch of kids who are not going to see playing time. All right, so these are the logistics that I can speak to on surface level. Mr. Farrell could speak to them on a much more technical, specific level. But, given that we are going to be soliciting community dollars to make this happen as somewhat of, I don't want to call it a pilot program, but, as a first-year sport, we want to see how it goes. We had recommended a varsity-only team, right, to just understand the impact to our students, to our school, all of those things. A league, I believe this was a question before. Obviously, a lot of schools within our Coastal Mountain Conference do not have teams. I believe Lower Lake is the only team with a current flag football team. So we would enter in an independent league, which would allow Mr. Farrell to kind of manage the schedule and the location. Fort Bragg doesn't have a team. I'd just like to say that right now. So, right? Okay, good. So we won't have to deal with that, people traveling to Fort Bragg. So again, I've already talked about season in the fall, 1 game a week. Coaching, obviously, we would need 1 coach to start out with. Game officials, that's pretty standard there, in transportation for 12 or fewer students. I think what's interesting is, should this come to fruition, we were talking today with Mrs. Brazil at lunchtime and Mr. Farrell, and we grabbed Mr. McMillan when he walked by. But, thinking about what this could do for homecoming week, right? Like you have a flag football game on Thursday, football game on Friday. How awesome would that be as an addition to our school sports? And we're always looking for more things for our kids to do. And in athletics, when you think about the time commitment to athletics, it's big. It's not a one-time event. I mean, the amount of time our coaches put in coaching and extra workouts, I mean, it is a big commitment, but is really the only gig in town. Growing athletic participation is a boon for our students. These are our initial cost estimates. The stipend amount, which was taken off of the original prior to our new collective bargaining agreement. Our estimation around all of those are estimates, right? But Mr. Farrell put that together pretty accurate in terms of assessment or estimates. Those obviously it's less intense than some, obviously football. There's going to be helmets and big old pads and that kind of stuff. So we've kind of estimated ultimately about $28,000, which we're pretty certain we could have no impact, at least for next year, on our site or district. And there we are. That's it. It's a quick one. Questions for me or Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Farrell, do you have anything you'd like to add before bring it to the trustees?
Not really. I think it's been a couple years since we've been trying to do this. It is a fast-growing sport. The number of teams. I mean, people ask me a lot about when we moved soccer to the winter, and we actually increased sports participation in the winter, but also kids were still looking for things to do in the fall, in the female sports world. And I think this has been kind of on my mind for a long time, and I'm really hoping that we can kind of launch this program and see it grow. As Mr. Cinto and I have been talking, we see a large amount of interest, and that could come to fruition, and we would, in theory, maybe need 2 teams, but that's not really realistic when it comes down to competing the first couple of years, because you do want the kids to have success when they're out on the field, at least to feel like they're improving in the sport. So it's really just, I don't like calling things a pilot program. I mean, that was a term used quite a bit for a while, but I do see this continuing because I see Napa continuing to talk about this, and their schools, they're not quite ready to do it yet. Justin's also either talking or going to do it next year. So it is coming along pretty nicely around our Napa County area too.
Great. Yeah, it'd be nice to have some shorter drives and some local teams to play
Yeah, and
against.
just a quick add-on to that, our leagues are changing for volleyball, basketball, baseball, and softball next year, where we aren't going to be forced to go to Fort Bragg and Willits. So we've been doing some work in our conference around restructuring and aligning some of our leagues, and that's actually in the benefit of our travel.
Okay. Trustees, any questions?
I'm just curious, I know several years ago, Vintage and Napa added lacrosse. Has that ever been considered?
So that's a great question, because often people have talked to me about water polo or lacrosse, or our sports are dictated by what our leagues are playing. Our leagues are based, I like to call our league one of the best small school public high school leagues. Just because we're all public schools in our league, and it's all we all have dips and ups and downs within our own teams. We don't have private schools that we compete with within our league, but it does kind of ground us to what kind of sports we play. If we were to add some of those sports like water polo or lacrosse, we may have 1 or 2 kids that are really interested in that, but those are high participation sports, meaning you're having 10, 11, 12 kids in the pool or on the field playing teams that are much larger in scale, like Redwood High School or Napa Vintage or something like that, that have more of a volume of kids that are able to choose from to play those particular sports. So when I say that we need, when I talked a little bit about, wanting to have some success in these types of things, scheduling is going to be key to trying to drive that the first couple of years. But there is a lot more variability, and there's actually probably a little bit more consistency with our kids knowing kind of how to play football more so than how to play water polo or lacrosse, which takes very specified training.
Any other questions?
So, Mr. Fairler, are you pretty confident there's enough up-and-coming teams in an independent league to keep a team engaged?
So most, I kind of base my feelers around the North Bay League, schools like Healdsburg, Annalee High School. They have 2 divisions. They have a Redwood and an Oak League within their conference. There's Vine Valley teams that do have flag football. The Vine Valley has Napa Vintage, and then the Casa Grande Petaluma schools. And then the Marin schools all have it too. So I kind of base my knowledge around that. Okay. And most of the schools if Napa's really the only one that I think does not have flag football right now. In the Redwood, which has a division similar to our size of schools, they're playing 24 games, 2 games a week. So they're filling their schedule with their own league teams. And I think they're more than happy to schedule a couple of non-league games. I just got to get on the phone if and when this is particularly approved. I mean, I don't want to go start scheduling things before we have the freedom to go there. But we travel. I mean, going to Fort Bragg is harder than going to the East Bay. Sometimes it's harder than going to Sacramento. So there are opportunities for us that some of our schools in our league do not have in terms of travel, because we're a little closer to some more urban areas that would have teams for us to potentially go. I'm really shooting for 1 game a week. Because is really what I'm trying to get this off the ground with. When I talk to the coach, whoever we were to get, it's really going to be important to teach the kids the game, and then to get some opportunities to play, and then to pick it up, and get some feedback from what worked, what didn't, and then move on from there. And a side note, I do have a softball player that I had last year that is in college playing flag football right now. Okay. So there are opportunities at the next level as well.
Okay, cool, great.
And this is for girls,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
What if a boy wanted to play? Are they, how does that?
Well, we have Title IX, equity in our sports, and our section says when you have comparable sports, for instance, baseball and softball, unless you identify, you know, in California as one or the other, we're not allowed to have crossovers in those comparable sports. Mr. Heller, you might want to help me on this one. But
Oh, so football then.
So that means no more
so
females
flag
in
football and football would be a
right.
pair,
So
right? So
once our girls graduate this year, there would not be girls allowed to play regular football after this?
Right, exactly, yeah. And that's and those are the only 2 girls that we've had play through football anyway. So like that's a rare occurrence anyways, but we would be looking at pairing those things. Is that, Mr. Heller, am I speaking pretty accurately there?
I think you're on it, yeah.
Good, all right.
Okay.
I had one more question. Do you want me to go first?
Yes, go ahead.
I know I have someone at home that'll be extremely excited about flag football. And when I look at what it's been like 8 years of Powder Puff, I mean, there are so many girls playing Powder Puff, and I realize most of those are also multi-sport athletes in the fall, so I get that. But that's why most of my questions were like, how do we have more than 12? Like, should we have a JV? So that's where I was coming from, is like, I don't want to,
Yeah,
because I think about skill. You're going to take the best players. Those might be the older people. What do we do about the younger stuff?
I don't see this as being one of our very few cut sports. We have a few. Volleyball is a cut sport.
Yep.
Basketball at times can be a cut sport on the boys' side so far. We haven't experienced that on the girls' side. Soccer can depend, like, it depends on
It's happened.
more safety sometimes than anything. And then baseball, from time to time, will have more kids than we have spots for.
So
But
if
all
those
of
30 kids come out,
well, just
What does that mean? Okay.
Well, to answer all of those are kind of either fixed by the number of participants in a playable action game, right? You have 5 basketball players, you have 6 volleyball players. They're smaller. I mean, the one that's not might be soccer, but there's substitution rules. There's not a lot of substitutions. Football, flag football and football are free substitutions. Like, I'll send 88 kids out there if I had 88 kids out there in a football game. And it's similar in a flag football. There's no substitution rules. So you can carry a team of 25 in flag football and have one team and still be able to have really high participation within that team. I mean, I'm not saying that's what the coach would do. You can play 7 every single play too, but there is more opportunity for kids to play when you have a high substitution, high volume of kids that need to learn skills.
but then you might only take 12 to an away game. I think
Yeah,
is what I was.
I mean,
I was just trying to
yeah.
understand that.
Yeah, those
Okay.
are all things that we would discuss with the coach
Sure.
and the roster as we get moving. Yeah.
Okay. And then I thought I heard you guys say that you could do this without money from the district, but I thought this was a request for funding. So
I believe it's a request to fund the entire program. Yes,
Okay,
I
that's
believe
what I-
also we obviously SAA, the Saints Athletics Association, has always been very helpful, especially when we start programs. When we moved soccer, they were very helpful. We also had community members that caught wind of us moving soccer to the winter to increase participation, because we added 2 teams when we did that. We added JV boys and JV girls, and we had some community support as well from that. And I don't want to go ask for community support without knowing we're going to do it.
Yep.
So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and I appreciate adding more, because what I think you even tell us that students are more engaged with school when they're also playing sports. So
Yeah, that's typically how it works, yes.
why I really support all of, like, adding more. So I appreciate it, and thank you guys.
Okay, I have 2 quick questions. So it's 7 players on a field. Is that because of the size of our school? Why it's
No.
not 9 or
No,
11? That's just standard, it's just
rule.
7?
That's the rule. It's a 7-on-7 game.
just
The
curious.
game play is 7-on-7, just like football's 11-on-11, basketball's 5-on-5.
Yeah.
So it's a
Okay.
7-on-7 game. And it's
And-
played on a shorter field.
Okay.
If you want me to get into the field discussion, that's probably should
that's
be
okay.
another
That's okay.
item. But you can actually play it on our existing field. The width of the field is shorter. It's actually measured by the bottom of the numbers.
Okay.
So the bottom part of the numbers on each side of the field, and it's only 80 yards long. So you would have the touchdown area from the 10 to the 10.
Okay.
So you could still play it on our field. I think you'd probably have to use some sort of cones to make sure the kids know where the out of bounds would be, but it's completely transferable to what we're having out there now, even though I want a new field really bad.
I hear you, yeah. Okay, two more questions. I was reading the answer that was given, where I just would like some clarification on this language. We're trying to keep the cost down as an initial offering since we are going to solicit funding from the community. What do you mean soliciting funding from the community?
Well, again, there are people that are always interested in what we're doing. I have people all the time asking me, what can I help with? What can I help with?
Okay.
So people have asked me about this because they see the excitement that happens at Powder Puff and the number of girls that are
Just
doing
private
this.
donations?
So
Just-
people
okay.
are already talking to me about, like, are we really going to do this? And I said, well, we're trying the hardest we can. We tried a little bit last year, and it was just the timing wasn't very good
Okay.
on my part. So, like, we're gonna do what we can to get this going as quickly as we can.
Great. My only request from the district is after the season of the varsity girls flag football team, could we have another report? I'd love to know about how much the season cost and how, if we will be able to add a JV team, if you think that would be a good idea at that time.
Yeah.
Since it's a new sport,
Yeah,
I would just love
absolutely.
to have an update on how it went. Great, thank you so much.
Okay,
Can I-
just want to,
Yeah,
I
go
just
ahead.
want to chime in here. My question was similar to Trustee Mora's as far as the more students you can get on that field, I think is great. And because my question was the same thing where it's like
Sure.
30 kids are excited, but only 12 play. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
as many students can play.
Yeah,
as
and
possible.
excitement comes from kids that are already running cross country and running and playing volleyball and cheering or something like that too. So and as well as kids that are coming in that aren't doing sports. So when we get the bulk of the fall, when we start prepping in the summer, some of the kids are going to want, well, I want to try volleyball, or I might do cheer, or I want to try volleyball, but I want to do I'll go back to cross country. Or now we have another option for them, and all of our coaches in the fall, Mr. Dell, Miss Montelli and cheer, and Mr. Hanna have always worked together with the kids to make those opportunities available for them for the summer. So you practice volleyball and then go out and practice with the flag football or whatever the case may be. Yeah. Yep.
My last question is regarding the stipend. If the district could provide for us, are all coaches given a 9% stipend? I know that we have some, I think I've looked at a schedule, some are at 6%, so maybe we just have a comparison of what sports
Yeah.
coaches, what
I mean,
the stipend
I
is.
can answer. I mean, I used to be
Okay.
in that realm.
Okay.
Maybe Mark doesn't want me to answer it. I don't know. But all of our varsity coaches are at 9%. Our football coach is at 10%. When I talk about coaches,
Okay.
that's our head coach.
Okay.
All of our head coaches are at 9% male or female.
Okay.
All of our assistant coaches are at 6%.
Okay.
That are paid. And
Okay.
then we have, I think the football is at 7. There's some added safety things that football gets a
Okay.
little bit more. So that's how that's worked, and that's how that's been for ever since I was involved in the union.
Okay. Okay.
All right, thank you so
I
much.
had one final, I just did a
Yes.
quick search of the CIF bylaws, and it does say that girls flag football is not tackle football, so therefore they're different sports, so girls could apply to play boys tackle football should they want to. Soccer and basketball are equivalent, but these two sports by their nature are different, so.
Thank you for looking
Yep.
that up. Great.
welcome.
Thanks for that
So
clarification.
now the next step, this has to come back to us? Is that what the directive we're giving to the district?
We agendized it twice, once as information.
Okay.
And that's very typical when you're adding a new sport, in case there's any community input or people who want to voice yay or nay. And then we are intending to bring it back next month for your
Your
vote.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Just have one peripheral, not for, but it's kind of bringing to mind in terms of total district costs for sports across even RLS and the high school. I just don't have any concept of what that is, and if this is a big increase, it seems very small. I just, from a fiscal responsibility, I just want to make sure that, just to look at that.
I think we can work with Mr. Farrell and Mr. Cento, Dr. Vang, and put something together for you to show you by sport, so that you have some context. Is that what I'm
Yeah.
hearing?
Context, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening, Coach Farrell.
I'll just say our site budget for athletics is about $250,000.
Perfect.
No, I mean, that's what it is.
It is?
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
But I don't believe that includes stipends, correct?
No. It's a healthy budget.
Right, which we have always run in the black, so yay.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to 8C, presentation of the 2025-26 school plan for student achievement, the SPSA for St. Helena High School. Mr. Cinto.
All right. Well, good evening again. I'm going to just jump right into it. All right. So I had I wanted to make sure that I was aligning my presentation with Andrew Ryan, Becky Rocha's. So in reviewing their presentation, I wanted to make sure I provided the same amount of information that they did. So what you're going to see is some demographic information and some previous performance that I consistently track every single year, some STAR data, some definitions and some things that you need to consider when you look at those reports, and then the reports for grades 9 through 11. And then I'm going to go into the bulk of this because, as a reminder, this is a presentation on our school plan for student achievement, not the entirety of what the high school does to make sure we're getting our students to the finish line. So I've kept my presentation to those things specifically. All right. So demographically, this is how our school kind of lays out. Obviously, this past year, we saw a big uptick in district of choice enrollment. Our enrollment last year was 411 students, and we jumped back up to 443. Special populations, this is something that I always keep track of and communicate to staff because it's we get students that, are very transient, students that come and go. I'll tell you just really specifically, and I don't know if the laser pointer works, but that top button there in special education, we're 11% special education. And when I came back to St. Helena in 2009, we were about 8%, which is a state average, but the state average is now at about 14% in California, so we're below that state average, which is good. But obviously, there's more students receiving special education services. You also see a number there, the RFEP number, students that have been reclassified. That number is only for students that have been reclassified in the last 4 years. And the reason why that number is important is because we're still required to monitor those students post-reclassification. So we monitor their progress on grades, how they're doing in test scores, and that's something that Mrs. Ganshorn has been doing an excellent job of. I asterisk SDC, that's socioeconomically disadvantaged, because that's a less reliable number for our schools nowadays, because with free and reduced lunch or universal meals, parents are not required to submit that form, so we don't necessarily know the entirety of our socioeconomically disadvantaged population. I would say at one point in time it was about 48%, so I'm pretty leery of that 35% number given the shifting demographics of our school. Again, looking back in time, a big shift in ethnicity in our school. I would say, again, 2009, looking at the percentage, we were about 52% white and about 42% Hispanic, with about a smattering of other. And now we're 55% Hispanic and 39% white. Gender has remained the same. Under prior performance, this is something that this is part of a larger document that I check from year to year to year that looks at how we fare in state testing. Some of those other bigger ticket items, state seal of biliteracy, golden state seal merit diploma, CT pathway completion. Obviously, we've seen a dip in mathematics, which is in large part due to course exposure. I went back and tracked the last 4 years. I've only been off by at most 4 students. So course-taking behavior is the big indicator of achievement in mathematics. So when I looked at last year, I think I was off by 2% in terms of predicting the performance, because students that get a B or higher in integrated math 3 tend to pass the CASP. We've had 1 student in my tenure in integrated math 2 pass the math CASP test, just 1. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But on the whole, you look at every single other area, a lot of good news for St. Helena High School and our students. Our A to G completion rate, 10% jump, more students completing CTE pathways, more students getting the state seal of biliteracy, which is interesting because all of those dual enrollment students when we were, not dual enrollment, I'm sorry, a dual immersion district, all of those students have cycled out. So these are students persisting in their language, even though they have less of a foundation. And then same thing with State Seal Merit Diploma. That has GPA requirements. So it's always good to see an uptick there. All right. So these are some considerations when looking at the STAR data. So what is the scaled score? You're going to see that. My best description of what a scaled score is, it's like measuring a kid's height. You know, the measure remains the same, like inches, feet, those kind of things. And you just see how a student is progressing through the years, right? So that level doesn't change. You just see how kids progress. We do know that our new STAR assessment benchmark is correlated to the ACT and SAT, and that there's a high correlation to the SBAC. So that's good to know. One of the challenges is that there's limited diagnostic depth. So what does that mean? It's a pretty brief screening tool, and the information that it gives back to teachers is not specific to the course. It's specific to the accrued deficiencies that a kid has had over time. So the kids in Integrated Math 1, it doesn't tell you specifically what they need for Integrated Math 1. It tells you some of their general difficulties over time. So as an example, so some of the reports will tell you that a student has a weakness in measures of central tendency, period. But it doesn't tell you if those difficulties are in the calculation of mean median mode or the interpretation of mean median mode. So it's less useful for teachers who are more focused on providing students support with their current coursework and their current standards, not the accrued mathematical deficiencies that they've had since they've entered school. And you're going to see that in this report right here. So this was our first assessment. Mind you, this was, I believe, the first or second week of school. Okay? So this is what did students walk in the door with. And as much as it might be alarming to see, oh my gosh, you have 77 freshmen who need urgent intervention. Let's remember what that number actually is talking about. That is talking about the accrued deficiencies that they've had over time. So when we were talking about Mr. Lewis's presentation on those 5 freshmen that are now in accelerated math, they have deficiencies. So one of those students is in the intervention mode, getting an A, right? Doing a good job, appropriately placed. But this test evidences that they have gaps in their learning at some point in time. So it's not that we need to kick them into another class to mitigate those deficiencies, but it helps us at least pinpoint what those deficiencies are on a broader level. When Dr. McClay and Mrs. Flores and Mr. Butts and I had a Zoom call with the STAR staff, my best analogy is, and they said it, the STAR gives you, if it were a target, it doesn't give you a bullseye in terms of what you need to do to address the student's difficulties. It's kind of giving you that outer ring of, hey, they're going to have challenges in these areas. But to make it really, really useful, it'd be very helpful if it were 1, course specific, and 2, gave you those specific things, because students want to fix what they have in front of them, not what they've accrued over time, if that makes sense. So again, I went ahead, and of course this was alarming to me as well, and then I went in and looked at the grade distribution of freshmen in Integrated Math 1. I actually look at all of Integrated Math 1, 85% of which are freshmen. We have 31% getting A's, 13% getting B's, about 27% getting C's, 19% D's, and 4% F's, which is far better than the bell curve, right? Students are still succeeding and persisting through mathematics through other support mechanisms. Access period, student skills, directed studies, after-school tutoring, some of those which we'll talk about, that were in my SPSA. But as a baseline assessment, right, this is telling us that we have bigger gaps. Students walked in the door with bigger gaps than we might have anticipated. But we're still getting them through our content. All right.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Could you just 31A, 17B, what was C and D?
31% A, 12.7% B, 27.8% C, 19.8% D, and 4.8% F. All right. So again, and I'm sure you've heard of Freckle, right? That's the program that helps mitigate these academic deficiencies, which is really challenging, right? Because some of these students' gaps are much more significant. And for those of you that have a high school student, unless there is a dedicated time and place, they're not going to invest the time to do it on their own. They're more concerned about managing the work that's in front of them and not mitigating these past deficiencies. And again, this was an assessment administered in August. This is our first one district-wide, so we're learning more about it as well. 10th grade? Oh, one more thing. We've talked long in this district, well, why do we do better in English? Well, each of those subjects has a different starting place. So when you look at 9th grade in particular, you have far more students with a deeper skill set in English than you do in mathematics. Well, when you have different starting places, you're going to end up at different ending places. And that's important to know because we often think, well, why can't we do as well in math that we do in English? Well, kids come at a very different place. We obviously growth, right? When we talk about the, whatever that group was that came and said, we make 6 years of growth or 5 years of growth in 4 years. That's a really good data point because we know we get our kids through and ultimately they are going to achieve at a higher rate than other places. But each of those disciplines have a far different starting place when you look at how students walk in the door. Same thing for grade 10. An important note on grade 10 is looking at, you go back to grade 9, you only have kids in integrated math 1, integrated math 2, you go to grade 10, so you obviously have 18 students who needed to repeat integrated math 1, right? And we don't move students, even though they get mathematical credits, we don't advance you if you have a D in math, right? So that could be a combination of students who have a D or an F, because we know math is very different than English, right? Math builds upon itself, whereas English, the standards tend to get more complex over time. In mathematics, they build on top of each other, right? It's not as, what do they call it, spiraled as English language arts. And then obviously you see that cohort of sophomores in integrated math 3.
Just quickly, are all the kids taking the same test, regardless of what class they're in? I'm just trying, everyone in grade 10 is taking the same STAR test, regardless of what math class they're in.
Yeah, because
correct?
it's not course specific.
That's all.
Yeah, but that's a great question, right? Because that's a challenge. When you get reports that tell you that are grade specific and the grade is comprised of students at different, yeah, exactly. You see that therein lies the challenge. And that gets even more complex, right, when you look at 11th grade. So we have 1 junior in integrated math 1, 23 who ended up in, and then it starts to get more diverse. And this goes back to my initial point around predictability on the CASP. Again, at most I've been 4 students off. I've been down to just 2 students off. If students aren't succeeding in integrated math 3 with a B or high, their chances of passing the CASP are very slim. It doesn't happen often. Again, 2 to 4 students off and looking at the last 4 years. So that's good for us to know because as much as we want to achieve on the test, right, it's not something that we don't want to achieve on. It's very hard to tell that junior in integrated math 1, give it your best, right? They haven't been exposed to the level of content to be successful. Same thing with integrated math 2. I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you right now, I predict our math scores are going to go up. So, and you can say that by just looking at those numbers. I can almost guarantee you, those 9 kids in math 106, 108 are going to pass. The kids in pre-calculus math 103 are going to pass. I looked at grade distribution from fall semester. I'm not going to say it's going to jump 20%, but my estimates this year should put us in the 50 percentile in terms of pass rate, which would be a huge jump. And we haven't done much differently, right? We have a different teacher teaching integrated math 3 this year, so that's a different factor, right? It's not a foolproof estimate because we're dealing with human beings, different conditions change. I looked at fall semester data, but if my estimates hold true that have proven over time that course exposure and success in integrated math 3 is a good indicator and correlated to outcomes on the CASP, my guess is we're going to fare much better. Which is totally understandable. How are you going to do well at something that you haven't been taught? All right. Enough of that. now to the true intention of this report. So, as you know, all of us did the Mad Dash last year. We generated 2 school plan for student achievements. This was approved in May, and it was our best estimate of what we needed to do at that time, even absent test scores and those kind of things. So all of these, as you know, goals we establish are part of our LCAP. We have to initiate strategies. So what I've done here is these are the strategies that were approved, all of which had a list of subsequent actions that we were going to implement or try to implement to make those things come a reality. So I'm just trying to bring you back in time in our goal to increase the number of Hispanic and SED students, which was a previous indicator on the 2024 CASP. This is what we came up with would be a good response. So the general structure of this report is just bringing you back in time to this is what we said we were going to do. And then we're kind of mid-cycle at this point in time. So how are we doing in those areas? So what is our progress on goal 1? So in order to get more Hispanic and SED students achieving on the CAS, we wanted to increase our after-school tutoring. So as of 11/18, we were 253 students. I checked this afternoon, and in only 8 subsequent tutoring sessions, because unfortunately I did not count bullet B in there, the additional tutoring provided by our Abbott and MTSS paras, we are now at 360 students. So in 8 additional visits, we had 107 students. Again, tutoring is offered only Tuesday and Thursday. I added Wednesday this year with our Abbott, and that's my kind of next bullet point there. One of the benefits of having early release Wednesday in that time in our schedule has been our paras that are normally pushed into directed studies, pushed into Avid, pushed into other academic classes. It gives them time to provide support for students. So we have a number of students who while they might not see Mr. Davis or Mr. Patterson, now Mrs. Gansworn, because Mr. Patterson's coaching basketball, they do feel very comfortable going to see our 2 paraprofessionals on Wednesday, which is really, really great. We have a couple of special education students who go every single Wednesday because those are their people. So that's been a great addition. They are not in that 360 student tally. I'm going to quickly backtrack. Grade level teams, I don't know if I've apprised you of this, but in working with the instructional leadership team at the high school, every other school in our district has grade level teams, right? I mean, it's natural. It's part of the function, the structure of the TK5, right? Because everybody's a grade level and a content level at the same time. The middle school schedule is constructed in a way so that they have departmental collaboration time and grade level time. We never had that at the high school. So as much as our professional learning teams are built around departments, we felt the need and we worked with our PLT consultant to build in our grade level teams. So how that works is obviously the only grade level teachers are social studies and English teachers, and everybody else has a smattering of the grades mixed in. And we've only had 3 of these meetings so far, but I will tell you, we've gotten more quality work and focused work around these grade level teams than I think we've ever had. I wish I could pull up our spreadsheet that has all the names and all the interventions that teachers are doing. And again, it's kind of infused in another area. But out of 3 meetings, we've had more parent contact, more referrals to the Wellness Center, more referrals to after-school tutoring. It's more coordinated that way because you have teachers who can talk about shared students. Whereas in departments, everybody teaches 1 grade, right? There's very little crossover between the adults on this campus in terms of shared students. So trying to organize around grade levels has proved very fruitful, and we continue to tinker in that area. And it's funneled more kids to get the support that they need. It's kind of like our MTSS, but put in the hands of teachers because they're the ones that are referring kids to the places that they need to be. All right, back forward again. I'm going to tell you right now, I hit a couple of dead ends and I'm having to pivot, and that's okay, right? Like we write these plans with the best intention and sometimes we fail. And I kind of forecasted that at our last leadership team meeting in the district. I said, oh, you want to hear about failure? I'll just come see my SPSA presentation. But I had worked with I have a long-standing relationship with the PUC Ed staff, and we do a lot of work to try and support their teacher credential candidates. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to build them into my plan, and I'm going to figure out a way, and yada yada yada. And shame on me, right? Lesson learned. Don't assume other people are going to want to participate in your plan. We gave it our best effort, and I'm saying it's not dead yet, but so I work with Dr. Jennifer Pena, Florida, and knowing that teacher credential candidates need hours to secure a credential. We're trying to get them to create a class to have their credential candidates to tutor our bus riding students, because we have a number of students who ride the bus. I knew right away, I met with her up at PUC. We weren't able to get it off the ground in the fall. I knew that wouldn't happen, but we were trying to gear towards the spring. She just let me know the other day it's not going to be possible. I quickly pivoted back in the fall, reached out to Howell Mountain and Pope Valley to see if they had after-school programs and support staff. They do not, and so I hit another dead end there. Talked to Dr. McClay the other day, and I'm going to try and pivot again and see if there's other ways that we could get those students who need to ride the bus for transportation and childcare purposes, to see if we can get them some additional support, because they can't take advantage of our after-school services, and we're having a number of kids that are. The second strategy was increased cultural responsive outreach, trying to host additional morning ELAC meetings on dispositions, attitudes, and beliefs around math success. We've identified that ethnicity is not the reason, or not a cause, or is not corollary to outcomes in mathematics. Parent education level is. So what are those dispositions in homes where parents are both educated, that they instill in their children to be successful in math? I was unsuccessful there, but we shared our presentation out, even though we couldn't get attendance at our meeting. I also am continuing to work with the Up Valley Family Center. Again, here's another pivot that I'm having to do. I think it was a meeting in Dr. McClay's office where we were meeting with Jenny Ocon about the volunteer tutoring program that they host that is primarily elementary and middle school aged. And I was like, wow, why can't we take advantage of that? So I'm still working with her on that one, because there's been some difficulty. There's been new management at the apartment complexes, and they have to be supervised, the adult volunteers. You'll probably hear in the morning bulletin either tomorrow or later this week. Recognizing that that's becoming more of a difficulty, I'm actually going to ask Mr. Butts' math classes, if those students, I mean, we have a shortage of community service opportunities, if those students wouldn't mind signing up to schedule themselves at those locations to provide support to their peers in mathematics, because we have a number of kids that help each other, but it would be great to do it on a more coordinated basis where they could accrue community service hours. And lastly, in that regard, parent education is a big aspect of our school district and community, and I don't know if you about the California Association of Bilingual Educators. We've expanded our participation in our ELAC. Again, more on that in a little bit. We'll talk about ELACs, but I'm funding, this is the first year, I think, in my entire career here that I actually have 3 ELAC officers, a president, a vice president, and a secretary. Normally, it's always been kind of led by one individual, but we have more participation this year, which is great. And we're funding all of their attendance and my EL teacher to CABE. And all of that is done together, parents, teachers working together, because to credit Araceli Romo Flores, she's really worked to formalize ELACs across our school district. There's much more momentum in making it more formal and less of a casual process. Lastly, how do we leverage building thinking classrooms? Obviously, it's been a really boon for our district, and Mr. Lewis kind of spoke to that a little. But I know we do a lot of stuff, but sometimes we don't necessarily know what works, right? We do a lot of different things. We're dealing with human beings. So what I've been working with the math department on is identifying particular building thinking classroom strategies that are designed to create greater equity across student populations. I can't recall all the specific strategies, but what we've done is inventoried all teachers and the frequency at which they administer these equitable building thinking classroom strategies within their classroom. We've tracked obviously the ethnicity of the students. We've tracked other demographic factors of these students. And every single grading period, I graph every student's mathematical grade in every single math class in our school, and then I disaggregate it by teacher. So that they can say if I'll just use Melissa Hansen, for example, if she uses a particular strategy once a week and somebody else uses it once a month and she's getting better results, that's more of an impetus for me to do more of that work. Now, mind you, this is not foolproof, right? It's not do this, get that. There's other factors at play, grading, time of day, attendance, all of those things, right? But at least it gives us some leverage to say, hey, look, these strategies are working and we know it because somebody who's doing it more frequently is seeing the results of that. We do a lot of stuff in this district, but we don't have a clear idea of what works specifically. So that's something that we do on it. I just uploaded everybody's semester grade into that spreadsheet. The math teachers will use it as a talking point to talk about what they need to do next. I already spoke to that. Should I do questions intermittently? I feel like I'm talking way too much. Your eyes are glossing over
Yeah,
on
let's
me.
pause for a second.
Sure. Yeah, that's a
Thank
lot.
you. Any questions so far on the material that he's presented?
Then we got to go back.
Now I'm getting lost. Thank you for pausing. Let's see. Now I have to go back and look. In goal 1.
Yeah.
We're still on the goal 1, okay.
Yep.
Other than number 3, which I think number 3 from what you were describing that you're doing offline with data, sounds like PLC work, right? Where teachers collaborate to see what worked and then cross-share. I guess what I'm hoping to hear, what is being done in the class time instead of after-school time to get these students intervention work, or I guess, so what I'm concerned about is we're looking for lots of ways to get them extra hours and tutoring outside of the school day. What I'm curious of is if you also have strategies for in the school day, outside of access, I guess. I'm just worried because you're saying pivot, 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 pivot. All right, that's outside.
Yeah, we're not
school day,
pivoting
so-
around that. I mean, building thinking classroom is our instructional strategy in
Sorry, I
mathematics.
didn't mean that one
unclear on
specifically,
that.
but yeah, so I guess I'm hoping to hear more of maybe of what are we doing in the school day for the intervention?
Right, and like I prefaced, right, this is not a report on the entirety of what our school does every single day for everything. This is a report on the goals that we establish in the school plan for student achievement. So, I mean, if you want more data on what happens during access period and what kids are being called in for, I mean, that's something I track like across the board. If you want to know grade distribution and how students are achieving and what interventions we deem necessary, what we're doing in student skills classes or EL support classes,
Okay.
I mean, that seems like
I
just a
see your
different
point.
conversation.
I guess maybe what I'm saying is does a strategy need to change to in person or in the school day instead of number 1 if it's not working?
Oh, you mean from a tutoring standpoint,
know.
additional
I'm just-
support? Yeah.
Like,
I hear. I think
that's all I'm
I
trying to
understand where
yeah,
you're going now.
like-
Yeah, I mean that's tough to say, right? Like I think I'm understanding your question, right? And this actually came up in a conversation with a math teacher today, right? I can think back when we had math support classes, right? When we identified students that had significant deficiencies in math and we took one of their electives to have a math support class. That didn't work. Our math results were far worse then when we took away something to give them more of something they were already struggling in. So, I mean, I think about things like access period. I had an SST this morning with a family for one of our new student skills class, and this teacher who is working with the student on executive functioning skills. Like those are the things that, again, this is not the entirety of our work that happen at our school. You know, we could talk about Avid and how they run tutorials and having kids do that, but I mean, obviously it's so fluid, right? Kids' difficulties and needs for intervention are ongoing. So again, not wanting to, I guess I don't know. It's a tough question for me to try and think about. I mean, how do we do intervention based on what. If we're going to use the baseline STAR assessment, I would say that's not a good something to base, do I need to build in a bunch of intervention classes next year? I can't necessarily say that yet, given one assessment, right? We're giving another one either this, I think we might have started it this week or next.
For another time, but it's like,
Yeah.
if you've got this prediction model down so closely, what are we doing to intervene for those students before they're juniors taking the test? Like, I'm just in the classroom, not
okay.
outside the classroom.
Yeah,
and
and
you
that's
don't need to answer
yeah,
this,
no,
but I'm thinking, okay,
it's
you're
hard.
doing all these pivots.
Yeah.
What do we
And again,
pivot in the school day?
And I think that's where we have to decide what are we truly aiming for, because we can do a lot. We can do anything. We can't do everything, right? So if our challenge is to increase test scores, right? If we want to say that, then other things will have to change, right? I'm going to have to change.
But
my
that's
test
what this
schedule.
goal is. I'm just referring to this goal.
Yeah,
So
I got you.
I hear you there.
I got you. All right.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So in the first year, 23, 24, about 51% completed A through G. The next year was like 59%. Why isn't everyone doing A through G? Like, how many periods are in there the day? Why isn't everyone every year? You have math, you have science, you have English, and then the 2-year ones mix up. I guess I don't understand why every student isn't on that path and doing all those things.
So the second you get below a C in any of those A to G subjects, you are no longer A to G eligible. So you have to get a C and above in all those categories to be considered A to G eligible. So even in cases where we afford students the ability to remediate a D, to be A to G eligible, if they know their post-secondary path is going to be a community college, they're not going to remediate that D, whether it's for financial reasons or whatever. Maybe they're going to a trade school, whatever their post-secondary ambition is that's not going to be time well spent for them to remediate a course to be A to G eligible. I would say 60% is still a really good number in terms of getting kids to that threshold, but everybody is on that path, but outcomes within those courses determine their eligibility or not. Does that make sense? When you look at our graduation requirements, right, we have other science class options, and as we talked about last year, Ms. Swickard is converting her classes to lab-based science classes, but some students choose different pathways that make them non-A to G eligible.
See, I'm the kind of parent that tells them what they should do. They don't get to choose their path.
I'll put you in front of my seniors and you can tell them that.
Mine's really quick. It's kind of a logistical one. So I'm interested in learning more about the accrued math deficiencies, and I think I have an idea about what that is. And that's just basically where you're moving along and you have deficiencies as you're moving along, it sounds like. Yeah. So my question with that was then, with a STAR assessment, with that, that's what it's called, right? The STAR.
Yeah.
So was that something that your teaching team experienced? Did they see those accrued math deficiency challenges when they were piloting the STAR assessment?
I was not on the formative assessment committee, so I don't want to speak to that. Okay. But again, remember, this is a good one to point out, and I'm back in 9th grade. It's not an integrated Math 1 assessment, right? It's a general math assessment that's ultimately geared towards CASP achievement, right? So when you talk about what we ask teachers to do, right, teach a standards-based course, right, support their students in their course, the challenge and why there's the component of Freckle with STAR is it's a online program intended to provide them lessons and support to mitigate those accrued deficiencies. To ask a high school kid to do that when they need help with their integrated Math 1 content, that's a big ask for them given the myriad of other things that they're participating in. So, and again, from a diagnostic, it's not a pure diagnostic. Like I was saying, it doesn't give the teacher that bullseye, do this to fix those deficiencies. It gives them a much broader picture of what those challenges are, some of which go far beyond or far prior to 9th grade. So when you talk about the ask of a teacher at a high school level with a much more complex subject matter, it's harder to fix. Do we go back to fractions and go to fix those when a kid is trying to do something more complex and wants to deal with the work in front of them? On a positive note, I mean, even from a baseline assessment standpoint, right? And we've looked at grade distribution. Our students do improve, right? Like, so, I mean, it doesn't look great on here, but to go from 77 to 63, and then it gets even less. And mind you, this was the first time we've ever administered this assessment. Yeah, so we're going to learn more about it over time, and things will change. I think we'll have a better understanding of it, but yeah.
Then with that, this is also about the STAR baseline assessment. I don't see an assessment for grade 12.
Yeah, that's something we're going to do, because if it's leading up to the CASP, why would we administer it? We're going to do it now, but if the goal of a benchmark in the cone of assessment, right, like class-based assessment, benchmark assessment, state assessment, there is no state assessment after 11th grade. So we're taking more instructional time to administer a test that has no bearing on any kind of subsequent assessment. But that's something we are going to do this winter.
Because I would just think it would be something that our staff would want to see as far as kind of the progression, even during their senior year. I would think. I will tell you. Yeah, I will tell you. Our teachers, they could develop course-based assessment that give them the specific information that those kids need for those courses. The STAR is not that, right? And that's okay. But it is not specific to their courses, which makes it challenging and makes the information that you get back a little more challenging to wrestle with. Yeah, good
Just
question.
have a quick comment. Going back to the tutoring, I thought it was pretty cool, like bringing the student tutoring, because in leadership and student congress, we've talked about that a lot. And we brought that up in student congress, and we've heard like a whole bunch of good feedback about like if we should do like the student tutoring, and like possibly like give the student tutors like community service hours, and we just heard a lot of good feedback from that for student congress.
Andy, you've just volunteered to be in charge of that. So, as a pre-calculus student, you're my first sign up. So I'll sign off on your hours, Andy. All right, let's make it happen.
Ben, I have one more
Sure.
question. I really, really appreciate that you shared with us the percentage of grades, because I know that giving the STAR test the first year presents a lot of unknowns and disappointments from experience. But what the grades tell me, it gives me a better understanding of what the standards are learned so far and what the deficits are in the foundational skills. So we've got, from our C, Ds, and Fs, we've got about 50% of that freshman class. Not, if I'm adding up the percentages.
Oh, C's, yeah.
Yeah.
You're putting C's in there.
Yeah. So I think what that does for me, and what I've heard the other board members, is that what can we do in class for math instead of during tutoring or adding an additional class? Because I've also had the experience of adding an additional, teaching ELD an additional time than the allotted time, and it didn't improve the skills as much. So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your goals of increasing attendance with tutoring, with engaging parents, motivating and educating parents to support their children at home. And then leveraging the culturally responsive BTC strategies. But I would also, a couple things. You're giving the STAR test again.
Yeah, I believe this week. And
This
next.
week?
Yeah, I forget the window, yeah.
Okay, so perhaps in a Friday memo, we could, just to stay on board with this conversation.
For sure.
And understanding this is the first year of the STAR, so kind of taking a deep breath and going through that together. But in a Friday memo, seeing how the students fared on their second round of the STAR, I think might be beneficial information for us. And then Dr. McClay, what I would like to see are two additional, I'd like to see two additional in-class goals during their regular class time. If we could talk to Mr. Cinto and the math team, what could that possibly look like? I appreciate you are so dedicated in finding so much time outside the classroom to help these kids. It's something that amazes me, and I thank you so much for that. But we've got them 5 days a week during that time. We've got to be able to, what else can we be doing in the class time?
Yeah, no.
Or maybe they already are, and you could just share that with us on a Friday memo.
For sure.
We have to sit here and be accountable for student achievement.
I get you.
And when I'm looking at those C, Ds, and Fs for freshmen and what that means for the trajectory of their math at the school, I will be comforted if I am in charge of student achievement from that umbrella level of what else is happening.
Yeah, and I think, what is it that we're currently doing? And I will tell you, 3 periods of 50 minutes and 1 of 90 minutes isn't a lot of time to accomplish the work that needs to be done.
Right.
So that's why having a benchmark that doesn't give you specific things of what a child would need to do within your particular class is a bit of a challenge, right?
Sure.
So you're asking a high school teacher to mitigate accrued deficiencies from kindergarten.
Right. And I know
that's
it's
a
not
huge
like
ask,
you've got kids that are coming in with all A's and this incredible foundation, and all of a sudden it's the high school's fault.
Yeah.
I completely understand. It is accrued. It is years of the
Challenge,
child
yeah,
being, having challenges.
Yeah.
So, these aren't just questions that I ask of you. These are questions that we will be asking of other principals as well. Like, we're starting, I wasn't here in December, but we're starting with you, where I just feel like I would love to know of those other goals that we have in the classroom, and having conversation with Mr. Cinto and find out. I'd just like to know more.
I would anticipate that a lot of that is exactly what's being discussed in the math PLC meetings. So Mr. Cinto and I will meet and we'll outline those for you and work with the teams. So
Great.
you can see and get a glimpse of what's going on in class to address these.
And I'm hopeful with you about looking at the next set of STAR scores, and even next year as the teachers and children become more comfortable with this new assessment.
Yeah. Great
Thank you.
questions.
Okay.
All right.
Goal 2?
This was goal 2.
Okay.
Got through that one.
Okay.
Barely. What's the LCAP goal for this one? Something about environment. I forget. I could go back. So as we do almost every year is, we're always going to have growth areas according to the California Healthy Kids Survey. I think I remember talking with this group and other administrators last year about what were those deficiencies. So those are identified there. We had an increase in low violence victimization, harassment, and mean rumors. Andy is actually a big part of this one here, but I'll save you for a minute. So our advisory program, what is this, year 2? Great addition to our school. It's not just an SEL program. We infuse digital literacy in there. We infuse additional college and career readiness activities. We do class announcements. So Ms. Rios generates all the content for that, and she's manipulating year 1 content at the same time she's creating year 2 content. And that'll exist for about 4 years until you have different content for all 4 grade levels. And she does this in 1 period. And she's coordinating with Mr. Fetters. He leads the advisory committee, which continues to exist on a probably bi-monthly basis to check in on things they need to do. Leadership participates in feeding the advisory program. So that's one of our vehicles. So we've incorporated those specific SEL skills because those are the skills Dr. McClay, Mrs. Flores, and Mr. Ryan and I went to a CHKS kind of regional presentation down in Napa. Those skills are the skills that are intended to improve those deficiency areas. So those were selected because they're designed to combat those areas. So we're particularly infusing those within our advisory program. The second action under that particular strategy is the addition of restorative practices. I worked with the Up Valley staff, and we found that a gal by the name of Mariana Martinez was booked 2 days at the elementary, 1 day at the middle school, and 0 days at the high school. And I worked with Up Valley staff to get her over here. Luckily, she had already been trained in restorative practices. And as much as I wanted to call it an alternative means of correction, it's not an alternative. We still issue school consequences when warranted. But it's an additional means of correction. So in addition to school consequences, any student that commits any of those infractions there is scheduled, and we record it all in Aries, and we have a track record of it because we want to determine if it's working. Again, a lot of what we're trying to do this year is determine if what we do is working, because we do a lot of stuff. So what we do is anytime a student commits that infraction, we record it in Aries, she has her intervention, and then we determine if there's recidivism in terms of they're committing the same infraction, because that would ramp up the consequences. And I will say to date, anybody that has had a restorative conversation has not done it again. It's still very early in the school year. So I would say as far as now, it's working. I also work with Michelle Haupt to kind of track that information in a specific place in Aries. There's another, there's also a referral process in our GLT for students who might need that kind of, from low-level discipline. Most of what we do in terms of making those referrals is when Mr. Fetters gets involved, but we want to be able to have teachers to be able to refer to Mariana since she is here 1 day a week and not want her just sit there idle. So teachers can refer as well. And lastly, told you, Andy, I was going to get you in here. Student Congress. To me, I know I probably talk about this every year, but the challenges change. And I think it's one of the best things we do as a school. Because as Andy can speak to this, when I address Student Congress the first time, I tell them, you know what, there's 440 of you. Anytime you guys want to overthrow the school, you can. You don't, because you're good human beings and you care about your school and you care about each other. But what Student Congress is, it's our vehicle to engage and empower students in addressing the issues of their school, because students are accustomed, and Andy knows this specifically because I had this conversation with him and his ASB counterpart around adults doing for students rather than students doing for students. And some of our initial strategies to overcome these growth areas, and I was very frank with Andy, were, oh, well, you do this or somebody else do that. And I really pushed him in his group to think about, no, it's not about what the adults can do for you, it's about what you can do for each other. And it's not just to make sure that the student body understands that leadership in ASB is being responsive, but it's to empower you, right, in being responsive to your peers. And what would you say, Andy? Is it working?
I'd say, of course, it's working.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and I would say last year, and I know we talked about this at our CHKS meeting here, but we saw an uptick in academic motivation and meaningful participation. Can I attribute it solely to Student Congress? No, because we do a lot of other stuff. It's a different cohort of students. But we're very intentional about it. And we use the same PLC process. What do students need to know? We put the data in front of their faces around the California Healthy Kids Survey and the deficiencies that we have. What is it? What was the note I wrote? What do we need? What do they know? How do we know they know it? So the California Healthy Kid is assessment. And then what does leadership in the school do in response to that? And then when we're successful, how do we celebrate that? All right, I'm going too long. Sorry. Just give me the hook. Sorry, Mr. Heller. Don't give me that. I'm sorry. A lot of questions. Oh, my God. Where am I? Oh, okay. I talked about it without going to the slide to show my progress. That's pretty good. Sorry, this is what I meant to. I just talked about it in the initial slide. I'll just pause there for a quick minute if there's something you need to see.
And I know we've asked questions and have had good
Yeah,
conversation,
go for it.
but can we wrap it up in like 5 minutes?
I'm going to wrap it up in 2 minutes.
Awesome.
Any questions on goal 2? All right, I'm going to go to goal 3. Increase educational partner engagement. These were the initial strategies. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun on the last one. So how are we doing? Joint ELAC meetings, we've had tremendous positive attendance at 2 of the meetings. We do them jointly. Parents really appreciate it. As you know, a lot of our EL families have students across multiple schools. The geographical area that we serve is much broader than it used to be. So parents appreciate not going to 3 or 4 different meetings at different school sites to cover the same content. Again, I talked about what we do with Mrs. Romo Flores. We cover the required content, and then we address individual or specific questions from that parent group. We share those presentation post meetings, knowing that we don't want to limit access to information just to attendees. The GLT process, again, I would love to talk about that much longer, but the amount of work that we've got out of it, we talk about that spreadsheet. Teachers populate that, not us. The only students that I put on the GLT list are those students who become academically ineligible. Teachers populate the rest. They have complete access to that. They document the concern, they document the intervention, they document the notes, and then they document the outcomes to see that the work that we're happening is being followed up on. We continue to refine it. It's one of our topics for our next faculty meeting, given that we've only had 3 GLT meetings thus far. And then I've also worked with Michelle Haupt earlier in this year, prior, she's on medical leave at the moment, but to identify a space in areas where teachers can record pre-interventions that they do in their classroom, so we can have more of a complete picture of our students and the work that they're doing in their classroom based on interventions. And lastly, we started this year our quarterly counselor drop-ins that are communicated via Parent Square, pre-scheduled and calendared. I believe the next one's actually January 21st. And I think I put it in my principal's report, the document they put around post-secondary pathways. And I believe next month you're going to see a STARS MOU that is a group that works with rural schools on college and career guidance.
Thank you, Mr. Cinto.
How'd I do?
Any other questions?
No, I don't think at this point.
Okay.
Speaking for myself,
No, I'm good.
Okay.
You're just
Okay.
tired of hearing me talk. That's okay.
No, thank you,
No,
Mr.
I'm tired of hearing
Cinto.
myself talk. So-
Thank you for
All right,
your
thank you.
report and all the good information. Okay, we're going to move on to 8D, consideration of approval for the 2024-2025 school accountability report cards. Mr. Heller.
Apologies, I was shooing people along here. So schools and school districts are annually required to complete school accountability report cards, SARCs, and post them on the district website before February 1st. Each school site SARC contains data related to demographics, standardized test scores, curriculum, Williams Act compliance, and some related financial information, which is pre-populated mostly from the state of California. This information contained in the SARC supports the overall mission of the LCAP, and it's available on the district and school websites for the community to access. So I would ask the trustees to approve those SARCs this evening.
Okay, is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No, I don't.
Is there a motion to approve the 2024-25 school accountability report cards as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Andy, not here. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Communications, 9A, Superintendent's Report, Dr. McClay.
Well, out of respect for your time and our very dense agenda tonight, I just wanted to thank the board publicly and for those watching who have noticed that we changed the sequence this evening. And obviously, we started the evening with a few presentations, but then we jumped right into student achievement, which aligns with your first and foremost strategic goal, student achievement. So I just wanted to commend the board publicly for that, and it has nothing to do with the length of tonight's meeting, the sequence change, but to say it is nice to have that focus since that is our primary mission as a school district.
Thank you. Okay. We will move on to 9B, Chief Business Officials Budget Update, Dr. Bang.
Thank you. I'm going to keep mine brief as well. I have 3 items that I would like to update the board with. The first is around our EV buses and infrastructure. I am bringing some good news. I wanted to share the rebates and the tax incentives that we've received for this project, totaling about $1.2 million. And originally, when I brought this project to the board, I did not have all the information regarding the possible rebates and tax incentives that we could possibly receive. And so I wanted to just follow up and inform the board that these are the different rebates, tax incentives that we have received for putting in this project. The second item, we have received 2 one-time new funding sources. These are one-time. The first is the Student Support and Professional Development Discretionary Block Grant, SSPDBG. And it is in the amount of $349,627. I am working closely with Araceli to ensure that these one-time funds are spent within the allowable expenses provided by CDE. So there are some guidelines around what we can and cannot spend these funds on. The second one-time funding that we are also receiving is the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. Sorry, I feel like I'm. And this is for almost $60,000. And we've already spent this entire new revenue on the Renaissance STAR testing curriculum, which was actually about $68,000, and so we supplement it with general fund dollars. All right, and then the last item, Mike, our facilities director, has come across a mini excavator grant through the CORE program. It is part of the state's zero emission clean off-road program, and the voucher provides $54,000 toward a purchase of a mini excavator purchase. So we were able to work with the vendor to come up with a quote that would meet this grant. And so if we do receive the grant, we will obviously come back and let the board know and go from there. But there is no obligation to move forward, even if we get the grant, so it's up to us. They'll inform us whether or not we get the grant, and then we can decide whether or not we want to move forward with it. However, the maintenance team would love to have this equipment to help with their trenching, utility repairs, landscaping projects. This would cut out having to rent equipment or having to contract out some of our work to other providers, contractors, because we don't have the appropriate tools and equipment. So that concludes my report.
Trustees, any questions?
One question on the excavator. Do we have to consider training staff on how to use that and safety protocols?
If we do that through NBSIA, because they also have done other trainings for us, like the lift, so it would be done through NBSIA.
And that would be an additional cost?
No, NBSIA does trainings for free.
Okay, all right,
Yes,
thank you.
free trainings through NBSIA because
Okay.
we're a member.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I also had a question on this. So this would come back to us as a request to actually purchase? Because I was surprised we would need something like this and then want to maintain it. So,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I would think that is something to, if it comes back as an action item, I was also like, where does it live and who maintains it? And maybe that's additional information if it comes back as an action item. Thank you.
Okay. Item 90, St. Helena Teachers Association report to the board. Mr. Lewisdorf? Sorry. Oh, Mr. Lewisdorf, I apologize. I just am so overeager to hear you. I skipped 9C. It'll be real quick. Superintendent Subcommittee reports. Since our last board meeting, we've had the board policy meeting on December 16th. We will hear more about that later in tonight's meeting. And we had the Monrovia Committee on December 18th, and I will very quickly fill you in. At the meeting, we discussed trends identified in the October 25th meeting. Then we had a report from Jenny Ocon from Up Valley Family Center. She shared that there have been 700 teen visits to the Wellness Center. I asked her about trends identified during those visits from high school students, and she said that the leading trends were desire for a connection to therapy, family stressors discussed, grief support, classroom frustrations, and peer frustrations. Then we discussed the idea of an adolescent activity survey, and Dr. McClay is going to work with the high school, so the students will create a survey to find out what types of activities students, teenagers would like to have in their community to make St. Helena a more engaging activity for young people. So more to come on that. And we are also working on an official Monrovia mission and goals for Monrovia. And that's it. Any questions about that? No? Okay. In future meetings, I will have the minutes linked so you can just read them instead of having to share. Okay. Mr. Lewisdorf, please grace us with your presence. Thank you.
I have my summary of all of Shakespeare's works. You guys ready? Yeah. Okay. No, I'll keep this very short. Good evening, trustees. Welcome back from the holiday break. We're in our semester. I'm always reminded with seniors that this is like now kind of the finish line is approaching to them. So I get to relive that every year. And we did some reviewing of diplomas, what their names were on diplomas today. So it's becoming more real for them. So nonetheless, I saw the presentation earlier this morning, or not this morning, meeting about property taxes, and I thought, oh, this is a good reminder that I'm still going to reach out. Hopefully tomorrow we can work out a time with Dr. McClay about meeting with some board members just to go over some workshopping, some ideas regarding the budgeting process and so forth. So just to, keep your calendar that is coming. So we'd like to do that within the next 30 days or so. I think would be great. All right, I appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you for staying, too. 9E, California School Employees Association, report to the board. Do we have a member? No. Okay.
Can I just interject, because it does say the attached is a written report, but obviously nothing was submitted?
Oh, I don't see anything.
Okay.
Do you see anything?
No, I don't. I'm just getting confirmation, but, okay.
No? Okay. Okay, items 9F through 9H are the principal's report. As always, thank you so much for your reports. We will move on to business operations, contracts over $25,000. Dr. Vang.
We have one contract over $25,000. This is for our escape license. We currently have this software that we're using both for payroll and for HR. Our current contract expires at the end of this school year, June 30th, 2025. Napa Valley Unified has pulled out of this contract, so currently, as of January this year, it's just the 4 Up Valley districts and Napa County Office of Ed. So we are looking to renew the escape contract for an additional 5 years, and not only with renewing the licensing fee, but also the cost for the systems analyst, who is an employee of Napa County Office of Ed.
Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
Just a quick question. Why did Napa Valley Unified not continue with this?
They are continuing with the exact same vendor. They just they wanted their own contract.
Oh,
So
okay.
longer story.
Okay, got it. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve contracts over $25,000 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Moving on to Human Resources, 11A, consideration of approval for Resolution 25-13, skipping and competence criteria. Mr. Heller.
Yes, the board's asked to approve Resolution 2513, which establishes skipping and bumping process for certificated employees in the district in alignment with California Education Code 44955D. This process would allow employees with less seniority, but who have qualifications and skills in a particular area of need to skip a more senior employee. The conditions for potential district needs are outlined in the resolution and specifying the desired qualities and characteristics that would be considered in the event of any layoff procedure. So I would ask that the board approve this resolution.
Is there anyone participating who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 2513 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
President Simon?
Aye. Motion carried. 11B, consideration of approval of the collective bargaining agreement tentative agreement with CSEA Chapter 287 for the period of July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2028. Mr. Heller.
The district and CSEA Chapter 287 have completed negotiations to develop a tentative agreement that's presented this evening. If approved, the contract terms will be incorporated into the new collective bargaining agreement, which will remain in effect until June 30th, 2028. Our team would like to extend thanks and gratitude to the Chapter 287 leadership for their time and dedication to their membership in the process, and we had asked that you would approve the tentative agreement at this time.
Okay. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? No. Is there a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement with CSEA as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. 11C, review and consider approval of AB 1200 public disclosure documents associated with the tentative agreement between SHUSD and the California School Employees Association 287 classified management and confidential employees. Mr. Heller. Ms. Dr. Caving. Sorry.
Thank you. So this is AB 1200, the public disclosure for CSEA Chapter 287, and it also includes classified management and confidential employees. So there are three groups that are included in this AB 1200 report. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Is there a motion to approve the AB 1200 public disclosure documents associated with a tentative agreement between SHUSD and CSEA classified management and confidential as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. 11D, review and consider approval of the classified salary schedule for 2025-26. Dr. Vang.
So this revised classified salary schedule for this school year includes an increase of 1% retroactive to July 1st, 2025. Additionally, you'll notice that ranges 101 through 104 have been removed from the classified salary schedule. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the classified salary schedule for 2025-26 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. 11E, review and consider approval of the confidential salary schedule for 2025-26. Dr. Vang.
Right, so this revised confidential salary schedule for this school year includes an increase of a 1% retroactive to July 1st of 2025. Thank you.
Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions on this agenda item?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the confidential salary schedule for 2025-26 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Okay, 11F, review and consider approval of the classified management salary schedule for 2025-26. Dr. Vang.
The revised classified manager salary schedule for 25-26 includes an increase of a 1% retroactive to July 1st, 2025. Thank you.
Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Nope. Is there a motion to approve the classified management salary schedule for 2025-26 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. 11G, review and consideration of approval for Amendment 2 to the employment contract between Chief Business Official Dr. K. Vang and SHUSD. The board is considering an amendment to the Chief Business Official's contract which provides the following. Effective July 1, 2025, the Chief Business Official annual salary through June 30th, 2025 was $238,625, which is step 3 on the board-approved executive cabinet salary schedule for the Chief Business Official's position. However, reflective of the salary increase provided to the St. Helena Teachers Association, her salary shall be increased in the 2025-2026 school year as follows. A 2% increase retroactive to July 1st, 2025, an additional 2% increase effective January 1, 2026. The new salary schedule reflects the ongoing 4%, which will be in effect beginning July 1, 2026. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Is there a motion to approve contract amendment number 2 for Dr. K. Vang, Chief Business Official, as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. 3 more. 11H, review and consider approval of AB 1200 public disclosure documents associated with the certificated management and executive cabinet salary schedules for 2025-26. Dr. Vang.
All right, so this is the AB 1200 public disclosure for the certificated management employees and executive cabinet, which will increase in alignment with SHTA's agreement of 2% retroactive to July 1st, 2025, and 2% effective January 1st, 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions? Is there a motion to approve the AB 1200 public disclosure documents associated with the certificated management and executive cabinet salary schedules as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. 11I, review and consider approval of the certificated management salary schedule for 2025-26. Dr. Vang.
The revised certificated management salary schedule for 25-26 includes an increase of a 2% retro to July 1st, 2025, and a 2% increase effective January 1st, 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Is there a motion to approve the certificated management salary schedules as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. 11J, review and consider approval of a revised chief business official salary on the executive management salary schedule for 2025-26. Is anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the revised executive management salary schedules for 2025-26 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Okay, we have come to that time in the meeting where it's almost 10 o'clock, and we need to vote if we would like to extend past 10 p.m. We can also skip and just do what is necessary. Dr. McClay and I can determine that. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I don't think we're going to go much past 10, but I think that we should wrap up all the business of the agenda tonight.
Okay, so we'll
Maybe we don't have to read all the resolutions.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think that's wise. So we'll go through board-related items, but we will recognize but not read the resolutions.
I'm comfortable with that if everybody else is comfortable.
Yes. Except for maybe 12E, I had a question.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, let's keep.
So should we go ahead and just do it in case we need it?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, I make a motion to extend the meeting until 10:15,
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay.
if necessary.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay. Motion carried. Okay, here we go. 12A, adoption of resolution 2517, School Board Recognition Month. Okay, thank you so much. It's nice to be recognized, blah, blah, blah. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item?
You want to
I
say
do,
something?
yes.
30 seconds.
I'm watching the clock. I just wanted to thank you publicly for your service. I think very few people realize the hundreds of hours that you give of your time every month, month after month after month, to serve the students of this district. So we do have beautiful certificates made for you from Ms. Madrigal, and I will come and pass them out, and maybe at the end of the meeting, we could take a real quick picture up in the front.
Thank you. That's
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as Dr. McClay is passing them out, I will ask if there's anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item. Mr. Ryan, do you have anything you'd like to say? Okay. Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? No. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 2517 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. 12B, adoption of Resolution 2518, recognizing the significance of Black History Month. Is there?
President Simon, I'm thinking that maybe we actually should read this one, just out of respect for.
You got it.
Yeah.
Trustee Kerr, would you like to read it?
I will, thank you.
Wonderful.
Resolution 2518 of the St. Helena Unified School District recognizing the significance of Black History Month. Whereas the month of February is officially celebrated as Black History Month, which dates back to 1926, when Dr. Carter G. Woodson declared it as an important time in February to recognize the heritage and achievement of Black Americans. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District supports the significance of Black History Month to honor the contributions of Black Americans in the nation's history, to learn more about the past, and to better understand the experiences that have shaped the nation. And whereas the governing board acknowledges that the national theme of Black History Month for 2026 is a century of Black history commemorations, marking the 100th anniversary of the first Black History Week in 1926, and exploring the impact of these ongoing celebrations of Black life, history, and culture. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District recognizes that each student needs an opportunity to understand the common humanity underlying all people, to develop pride in their own identity and heritage, and to understand, respect, and accept the identity and heritage of others. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District greatly values ethnic and racial diversity and believes it enriches and strengthens our nation. And now, therefore, it is resolved that the governing board of the St. Helena Unified School District hereby supports the proclamation of February 2026 as Black History Month in the St. Helena Unified School District, and encourages all schools to commemorate this occasion with appropriate activities.
Thank you, Trustee Kerr. And I'm glad we read the resolution.
me too.
It's an important one. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions? Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 2518 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. 12C, information and approval of board policy updates, September 2025. And I call on Dr. McClay.
These are standard updates, primarily recommended by California School Boards Association. If you have specific questions, we're happy to address them. Pretty
Okay.
standard.
Okay. Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions?
No.
Okay. Any questions? Nope. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the board policy revisions as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. 12D, approval of board policy 5117 and adoption of resolution 2519, continued enrollment of DOC students. Okay, is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item?
It does say to call on Dr. McClay.
It does not on mine.
It doesn't?
No, but Dr. McClay,
Oh,
please.
maybe it doesn't.
I'll be brief once again. This is totally related to our decision to move from district of choice to interdistrict transfer agreement for the 26-27 school year. We do need to update our board policy 5117 simply to align with Ed Code and with the interdistrict transfer agreement. And then we also are requesting that we adopt resolution 2519, which would quote unquote grandfather in our district of choice students.
Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
Just one clarification for the record that our current DOC students and their families are aware of this resolution and they've been contacted to know that they're grandfathered in. Okay.
They'll all receive a copy of this. And as you'll note, only the student ID numbers were
Correct.
listed. Those who have asked or those who have talked with Ms. Madrigal have been told this was coming, but they will all receive a copy once
Okay.
it's done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I apologize, I just lost the agenda. Here we are. Okay. Is there anyone, sorry, is there a motion to approve board policy 5117 and adopt resolution 2519 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carried. 12E, adoption of resolution 2520, district enrollment capacity for the 2026-27 school year. Dr. McClay.
So this also is pretty standard. You've done this each year. It's a little, the only difference this year is as an interdistrict transfer agreement district, we wouldn't technically need to do this, but we discussed as a board that we would still like to do this and ensure that we have established caps that we feel comfortable with and that we have the adequate staffing for. The only change we made on this document from the last year was with regard to TK. And that's simply because we have 2 full classes, 2 teachers certified to teach TK, and it was causing a lot of confusion in the community with people saying, why do we have 2 full classes when the cap was so low? That is the number that is the most difficult to predict. So we've simply taken, for example, if we had 16 in one class, 16 in the other, and capped it at 32. But that, of course, is up for discussion, and you are welcome to do anything else.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
I did. For grade level 5, it's my memory that we were asked to increase that one particular year while we were expanding the DOC caps. And I guess I would like to ask if anyone, I'd like to move it back to a 90 so that it's consistent across the grade levels. But if there's any other memory of why we have that one grade up at 95, I just wanted to ask.
I did a little digging on it and was told that was what we would call a bubble year. And I believe you did it when the students were in either third or fourth grade, knowing it was a large class, and we wanted to be able to accommodate the then current students. That class is no longer a large class, so if you did reduce it back to 90 to match grades 3 and 4, it would accommodate all of our current students in grade 4 who would move into grade 5.
Is there any wiggle room with that then? Or is it just, would it be just all our students, or will there be some availability?
At 90 in grade 5 next year, you would still have wiggle room.
A little bit of extra, we had some
Yeah,
extra
we would still have a little room.
Okay.
Okay.
And technically with like TK and kindergarten, we can't really cap it in the sense. I mean, if 50 kids showed up that lived in St. Helena and wanted to go.
If
we
they
had
are
to have 50.
residents, we serve them.
Yep. And and I think if my memory serves me, we do a later for TK, we're actually contacting our IDA students later, is that correct? Yeah.
For TK, absolutely,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Will we take any IDA in TK or kindergarten? I thought we kind of don't.
We will, if we take them, it will be later, hence why the later date for them, because we need to be sure that we have room for all of our resident students.
Okay, so after discussion about moving from 95 to 90 for 5th grade, should we still approve?
Amended motion?
Amended.
Do it amended, okay.
Want to do it?
You want,
Go
are you
ahead.
ready for a motion?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the enrollment caps with the amendment of the 5th graders would be 90 to match the other grade levels at the elementary school.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed say no. Motion carried. Okay, so we are at the consent agenda. Give me 1 second. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, the item will be considered under discussion action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Nothing on consent agenda tonight. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Okay, 14A, future agenda items. Please take a look at the agenda for February. Any questions, trustees? Or any subjects for future agenda items?
I just noticed since it's me next month as the presentation, it says St. Helena High School, but I'm St. Helena Primary School.
Okay,
Just
we'll correct
little,
that.
Little correction there.
Thank you.
I don't want to steal Lisa's thunder.
We've got that flag football action we discussed.
The next, sorry, my brain's not functioning. The results of the next STAR data, is that just going to come as an update, not in this? Okay, just making sure.
Only because I don't have Mrs. Roma Flores here today to tell me how long it will take us to collate that data. I know teachers are administering this week and next.
Okay.
But then we'll need a little bit of time to
It could
collate the
fall into
data.
the student growth measures.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we'll have an opportunity, not at the board meeting, but in a Friday memo regarding additional goals for our high school students and
Yes,
during the school day.
We'll get that for you as well.
Thank you.
And regarding the flag football, will we discuss that next month? And are we able to, I mean, we would discuss probably one-on-one if we want to say, yes, we approve, but this is the amount, or we'll kind of coordinate that, or is it all or none? Like, we approve it, or is there wiggle room if we say, yes, we don't want a stipend at 9%, or how does that?
I would say as long as we're following contract language and all of ed codes, yes, there's wiggle room, and it will be agendized as a discussion, and then hopefully a vote one way or the other.
Okay, thank you.
Could you remind me, because I could not find my governance calendar, when do we get a wellness report? Does anybody remember off the top of their head?
I don't know off the top of my
Okay.
head.
Okay, probably
In wellness
is.
center or like the healthy kids?
No,
or
just
cha-
wellness in the district, because what I am noticing is embedded in some of the principal reports or on our SIPSA, things like that, there's an addition of a new wellness person coming maybe to the wellness center or this, and I would just like to get an updated summary of what's going on, who's where, how many, yeah. Well, not just about the wellness, but what's happening at the campuses, who do we have in place at the different schools, and what is going on at the wellness
Valley
center.
Family Center, right? That usually would do that?
Yeah, well, sometimes they do it, but we sometimes have an in-house.
We have one slated for March, and we'll make sure that it includes that data you're
Okay,
asking for.
thank you so much.
Great.
And I know earlier we discussed just language, notice of layoffs, that we were going to change that to reduction in force. Okay.
Okay, we're going to turn to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Well, we have 15 minutes left.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Meeting ended at 10:01 p.m. Thank you for everyone staying late. Have a safe drive home.